Hey everyone, welcome to another Friday night bee chat. Go ahead and get my YouTube side set up here so y'all can come in and hope everybody had a good week in the bee yard. It was raining here most of the week, on and off. Hey Steve, and there it is, and it's pinned. So let's see if we can drag things around. Come on. Hey Todd.
Hey, Charlie. How are you?
All right, as soon as I get this thing settled here. I don't know what it is with this. Trying to get.
No biggie. We have all weekend.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get it to where. Trying to drag it. Put it off to the side so I can read and do things on one side and
Yeah.
do the other things on the other side. I don't know if there's probably a better way of doing this. Now I'm set up.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, let's see who I missed here. Well, we got Steve and Lee and Richard and Ed and let's see, we got Tom and Melissa and Keith and Tracy,
Oop,
a whole bunch of people.
that was me.
So I see you had the first swarm of the season out there in your place.
Yeah. Yeah. I was up
Luckily, you
there.
could. Luckily, you could collect it.
Well, I hope so. It's on the other side of the fence.
Well,
Those people aren't home, and they have two big German shepherds. Oh, I'm a German shepherd fan, but I seriously doubt I could outrun them. And the
oh, so
second
it's that situation, huh?
yeah, the second my foot hits their side of the fence, they'll come out from somewhere, and
Mm.
that'll be
I
the,
didn't.
that'll be
Yeah, I
that.
didn't know that.
But I did bait a box with Swarm Wrestler on my side of the fence, and before I left there, I had a lot of interest. So
That's
maybe
good.
it's them. I don't know. But I'm on the brink of busting out here. I'm going to start grafting tomorrow, and
Really.
hopefully I'm not too late.
Hey
I have
Ben, Peter. Um,
I have a bunch of 2-year-old. I have all of the queens out there have seen 2 seasons. Well, at least 2 seasons now. Some have. Some are starting their third year, so that's why I'm scared about swarming. It's going to be a mess if I don't act on it.
well,
And
I presume they swarmed because they were run out of room.
yeah, uh, I don't know if you saw that video I put up 2 weeks ago, but that was the hive that was bearding on the outside in the middle of February. And
But now, even isn't February a warm temperature month for you?
no, not really. It,
What do
it
you?
can be, but this year, it wasn't anything spectacular. It didn't rain a lot, but it wasn't, warm. It's warm today. Warm meaning like 70, 68, 70.
That's warm.
Yeah, yeah.
That's real warm.
So, and
I
I
mean,
looked
was
up
it
in
was
London.
it when you look at that hive? You said it was bearding the last time. Was it 60 degrees at the time?
Yeah, it was 60. It was cold. It was,
No, that's warm.
well, okay. Yeah, I
It's
guess
not
so.
120 degrees,
No, no,
but
yeah.
but 60 degrees. I'd been in that hive checking
Oh,
things out. in a heartbeat.
I looked at it. I got in there. They were telling me they're going to swarm. I just, I got busy at work. Things piled up on me. I've got this and that going on. And then I was going to do it tomorrow, believe it or not. Now, I took
Mhm.
today off and I was out kicking around out there seeing what I have to get ready for tomorrow. And then all of a sudden I hear this buzzing. I look up in the air and it's just a cloud of bees. And I walked around and it, sure enough, it was that one.
Yeah.
So it is
Yeah,
what
I've
it
been
is.
relatively busy in my yard. Of course, as everybody knows, or at least I think everybody knows, I had 4 dead outs in my out of the 12 honey production hives I had,
Mhm.
and I think it was queen related. Um, and because I know varroa mites were definitely taken care of, feeding was definitely taken care of. They just kind of dwindled out. But Monday evening, right at 6 o'clock, just about time sun was getting ready to go down, um, I took a hand truck out there and I ratchet strapped up 3 of my. I had 4 backup nukes. If one hadn't died on me, I would have been in good shape. I took my 3 that were my insurance highs, as I call them, and put them. I ratchet strapped them together. I screened them in. And they're light enough. I can lift them up by hand and put them on that dolly, and I just wheeled them down to that row behind me there, and
Yeah.
put them in place where the 10 framers. I slid the 10 framers over to the center area, put those nukes in there, and I did. There was 3 of them, and it was going to rain. Or we did that Monday. I did that Monday evening. It's going to rain Tuesday night throughout, or Monday night through Tuesday,
Mhm.
and it was raining about 3 days there. So I said, okay, the first thing you want to do is what I do, or any. This is what I do. Let's put it that way. Um, I'll have to do a Mike Berry here, I guess. I lock them up for 4 days, 3 to 4 days, at least 3 days.
Yeah.
Now, um, so I screen them off the front so they got plenty of air. They have screen bottom boards, but it's not been terribly hot here.
Mhm.
And been in the 50s, some in here lately, the last couple of days in the 60s, and they're going like crazy flying wise.
Mhm.
So anyway, I lock them up for 3 to 4 days, and then I went out there. Let's see, today's Friday. I went out there last night at 6 o'clock when the sun was going down, a little after 6. I went ahead, took my screwdriver. I'd stapled off the wires in and popped all the staples and pulled the wires. Of course, some of them came out, and checked what's going on type of thing. But since
Yeah.
it's getting night, they stayed there. There was one hide. I won't say it's aggressive. It's just rambunctious. I mean, it really, if you mess with it, they're coming out to see what's going on in a drove. And there's a hole in the rear end for my oxalic acid vaporizer. And I went out there the day before and it was nice day out, and they were coming out the back, like, all right, we can't go out to the front. We'll go out this one at a time out the rear end of this thing. And they were kind of hanging out the back, about 10 of them or so. So I kind of felt like, well, they've sort of as I call it, I got to let the beast reset their GPS. They
Mhm.
forget where they live after 3 to 4 days. And I'm only moving them 50 feet down the line.
Mhm.
And instead of just, moving them, what is it, 3 miles away and waiting a week and coming back. And
Yeah.
that's a hassle. And so anyway, uh, let's see, I'm reading the comments here, anything I'm missing. But I went ahead and popped the screens, and I went out there today, and everybody was flying. That I didn't get to really walk the line that well, but they were flying pretty strong today.
Yeah.
And so I got that done. I got them in place. Supposed to rain tomorrow morning. Pretty much, I don't know. It's a 90% rain chance. So I don't know just when is it supposed to start.
Yeah.
And then Sunday, it's supposed to be sunny, but chilly and windy. And then, hey, Russell.
Hey,
And
Russ.
um, so next week, it's supposed to be sunny all week. Of course, remember, everybody remembers we're going to spring forward Saturday
Yeah,
night.
tomorrow night.
We're
Yeah.
going to gain an hour of daylight in the evening, which is great for us beekeepers, the ones working.
Yeah.
And so I plan, if it's bad Sunday, I will sometime in the middle of the week transform these nukes from 5 frame to 10 frame
Hmm.
and do that. All right. Tom says it was raining out there in Missouri. So yeah,
Oh,
it's coming this way.
yeah.
I think it's coming up the coast. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I
Well,
walked like Johnny Cash. I like Johnny Cash.
well,
And
those bees that swarm kind of did me a favor because although that's not the box I wanted to make a builder out of. Hey, Darren.
Hey.
hey,
I was forced to kind of do something right away. So since they're queenless right now, um, I'll be going through it in the morning. I was supposed to do it today or tonight, but I got busy with a couple things and a neighbor needed help. But what I'll be doing is I'm making that my builder. I have tons of brood out there, so I'm going to pack that. I'm going to pack it down. It's a double, so I'll pack it with sealed brood, shake in a bunch of nurse bees from open
are you going to
brood.
take the top off and push all those bees down?
No, well, I'm gonna look at everything first. It depends because I'm gonna go through it, and if I can take some cells out and make some nukes, I'll do that because they're already done, right? So if I see unfinished cells, I think what I'll do is I'll cut them down. But it depends on how many sealed cells there are. If they're open cell, if I have a bunch of sealed
I
cells,
would. You need some splits there. I'd kind of maybe harvest them.
that's why I'm saying but then I'm taking frames out. But if I don't have a lot of sealed cells, I'll do that. If I have a lot, then I'll start with what I have. Just depends. I'll look and see where they're at. But
Right, that's my biggest goal this year is to become a better beekeeper on how to establish a cell builder.
mm,
I've had trouble with that for the first year. I did well. I must have lucked out. That's all I can say. And I actually had a 100% frame when I first did it 3 years ago. And about 30, well, yeah, about 25 or 30 cells, something like that. And it was only 2 bars. That's about all I put into a 5 frame nuke. And then the last couple of years, one year it was so cold. It was cold all right, like through May. I mean, I'm talking jacket weather, like
mhm.
February weather. It was like warm as all get out in February. And then come April, May, it was like just chilly. And it was and all that. So um hey James.
Good evening,
Uh
guys.
so
Well, the
I'm
best.
gonna. That's what I'm going to do. I've been watching. Went to the Michigan whatever bee conference.
SBGMI or
Yeah,
whatever.
whatever it is. I joined that and went to their conference. They had a fella there out of Virginia, which I kind of know where he lives, and he likes a queenless stealth starter finisher type thing.
And that's
And I also talked to a friend of mine does queens out in Frederick, Maryland. And I asked him, I said, Brian, I said, what do you do? And he said, give it 10 to 14 days and set that, to let all them bees hatch out.
I think what one of the best videos that I could recommend to anybody that's making a cell builder is, and this is just me because I've done it several times. It works great for me. Is watch Bob Binney's video. I think he did it 3 or 4 years ago. It's a queen right um, or a queenless starter, a queen right finisher. Where you have, when you first start out, you have a ton of bees in the bottom. You put that
Double screen.
divider
Double
screen in the
screen.
middle, and then the queen on top, and that thing works awesome.
And I seen a video. There's a young fella. He's only put out a couple videos. And the problem I have with most of the people when they put videos out, they assume too many things.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I noticed in his is that, and there was another one from British Columbia. I mean, on the other side of the mountain of where James lives, over in that territory of Canada, some club over there. And he had, and same way with the other guy. Now, the other guy was repeating what Bob Binney did. He shook nurse bees in the bottom box. It was a 10 frame box. He had a feeder in. He had two pollens of
Mm-hmm.
2 frames of pollen
Mm-hmm.
and a frame of nectar and a feeder. And he put his graft in. And now he didn't put any other comb in for these bees to hang on.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a young guy out of Virginia, I think it is, or Tennessee. His name's Jason, I think. And he said, I only put the graft in. All they have to focus on is the graft frame. I said, aha, and he got 30 or 40 cells out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he did the double screen. He waited a day or two. I think he waited 3 days. I'm like, he was all upset about that. It's like, that ain't no big deal. And then he switched it around where he took that box off and put that on top and put the queen on the bottom. And then he put a queen excluder in.
Yep.
And then he did some other, he cut the film where he didn't explain himself, where he had like 3 deeps on there. I don't know whether the top deep was empty or had a feeder in it or what. And I said, okay. Then the guy from British Columbia, I think that's where it's at, James, on the other side of the mountain.
Yeah, I saw that one. I think that was down in.
I've been wanting to read, huh?
I think that was in Namao. I think that was out closer to the Victoria Island. I did see that video.
What club was that? I've been trying to find that video again and watching. He was doing a. Well, anyway, with that guy, same situation. He assumed so much that I seen where he shook a bunch of bees down in the bottom box, put a feeder in, put 2 frames of pollen in, and I think he put some other comb in there for them to hang on. Then he put these double screen on. Then he put the queen and all her bees on top. And he came back in a day or 2, I think. And of course, all the foragers and everybody else came back around when they flew out of the hive and back into the bottom box. So there was more bees in the bottom box. And he had a good, bee queen acceptance, cell acceptance and everything.
The best advice I could give anybody that makes a cell builder, no matter what it is, you have to stuff that box with bees. If you think you can, if you think you have enough bees, you don't. You have to keep shoving bees in there until one doesn't fit, and then you might have enough. But then, after a while, you might have to shake more. But that's the key. Don't just, think that you have enough. I mean, where you can't see the frames, when you can't see the top bars, then you're getting close. You just have to load bees in there.
What do you say?
So
you're the expert here tonight,
you have to remember too for a cell builder.
What was that, James? I didn't hear you.
Did I lose you?
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I was just going to say there's a couple other things you have to remember with a cell builder is, yes, I don't think you can have too many bees. All right. But those bees have to be absolutely the fattest, plumpest, happiest bees you got. They have to have an abundance of resources,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to have an abundance of real good resources.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, agreed.
So now, do you have a cell builder where you feed them a couple days ahead of time, to kind of fatten them
Oh,
up, I
this
guess
gosh
you would
darn
say?
thing.
One thing to remember though is, uh, let's say you, let's say I built my builder today. I put in a frame of from open brood and eggs from somewhere, because you want to keep those. And Bob Benny goes over this. You want to keep the nurse bees with. You want their pharyngeal glands going, their mandibular glands going, so they'll feed those overnight. Then you take that frame out the next day after you graft, and then you put your grafts in its place. But you have to have at least this is what I do. I have a pollen frame on both sides, and then I have a feeder in there. I fill it up with 1-to-1. But the key is to having pollen, because they'll jump off the grafts and then go feed on the next, well, right next to that frame, and then they'll come right back. Oh, James dropped.
James drop.
But
Maybe.
yeah, that's the key. The resources, like what James was saying, you have to have plenty of pollen in there. You got to have plenty of feed in there. They have to be fat and happy, and you have to have more bees in there than you think you should. That's the thing. If you think you have enough, you don't. That's plain and simple.
And
That's
another thing is, on your grafting frame, I uh, cut the darn ears off on the frames, make that frame skinnier.
yeah.
And I'm not sure, but one thing that I think I might do this, if you can make it skinnier, then if you bring the other pollen frames tighter, there
Yep.
isn't any hole up here for the bees to go down in there. So I
Mhm.
think what I'll do is maybe take like a hole saw and cut a notch, like a half moon notch out, so the bees can
Yeah.
move down in between those two frames and stuff.
But you could also get those frames at Dadant or
I just,
Mammo.
yeah, I just took my regular frame, and I
Mhm.
took it to the sander and
Mhm.
ground the darn thing down, because I watched Ian and I was looking at what he had and everything, and all these guys are saying you want a real thin frame. They won't
Mhm.
build a bunch of webbing
Fur-
in there as much.
Yeah.
Fur comb.
Um, the other thing that I do, if I like for this year, for this first couple of rounds, I'm going to be grafting off of Mark Miller's VSH queens. So I have 3 of them picked out. Each queen is going to have its own color. So I have a gray cup, I have blue cups, I have green cups, I have red cups. So I'll pick one of the, one color for each of those 3 queens. Then I'll also put a push pin on top of the lid, so I know what color that, what color that queen cell, or where that queen cell come, or that the queen, the virgin that emerges. I want to know which queen mother she had. So um, that's just some more tracking that you do, and I'm writing dates down, and the whole 9 yards. This
So
year I'm going to be very.
what have you seen with Mark's queens?
Oh, I got into them today. All of them are, and I have not treated one of them. I got them. I got the virgins from him last June. I got. I ordered 5. Um, he shipped me a couple extra just in case there was problems in shipping, and maybe I had some fatalities, but I didn't. So I had 7. 7 went out on mating flights. 6 came back, and of those 6, I have 5 left now, because I don't know what happened to the queen. I don't know if they got rid of her or whatever. That the colony is still there, but I have a new queen in there. It's not marked because he marked them all for me. So I have 4 of his queens left, and of those 4, I've chosen 3 of them to graft from.
All right,
It's
now Brian wants to know: did you do a Harbo or UBO testing yet?
Haven't done anything yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wait till after Well, probably end of April, and I'll just do a simple mite wash. I'm not going to do the Harbo essay on them. I did pre-order the UBO, but I didn't follow through on it um, for some reason. I can't remember, but I'll just do a mite wash, which is not going to be super accurate, but it will ballpark it for me. But right now, I could see that the colony is strong. All of them are strong. Um, the one that I didn't choose out of the four, those seem to be the spiciest, and they're not even spicy. The other ones are calm on the combs. This one, even though they're not runny, um, they're just they kind of when I open that lid, they'll kind of flutter out a little bit. But the other ones, I open the lid. I could pound my hand on the lid before I open it. They don't care. They're super calm.
Right.
So that's what I want.
Yeah, I got a friend of mine in the Pennsylvania area. He really likes I'll say he's more of a queen breeder instead of a queen rearer, and he's got the UBO test kit. He was on
Mhm.
that. He was all excited about that 6 8 months ago, maybe a year ago, and he was on the list to get it and all this kind of stuff. And he has hives where they're so darn gentle that you don't even have to wear anything.
Mhm.
I mean, I wouldn't take the chance because I look at it this way: all it takes is one sting to the eye, and you've lost your eye, possibly.
Mhm.
And that's a huge situation there. And but I'm if I need some queens this year, or actually genetic wise, I like to get some of his stuff in my area so I can graft off of that and get that calms down. I do have one hive out there. It's a nuke. You raise the lid up and they kind of blow into your face, which I despise.
Mhm.
The
Now,
rest of them, you can raise it up and look at them, and they're like, "Yeah, what do you want?"
yeah. Now, Mark and I talked on the phone. I think he's talked to Brian too, but I'm not sure because I haven't talked to Brian about it. But Mark and I are going to send each other mated queens. So he's going to get my genetics from the drones out here. I'm going to get his genetics from the drones out there or back there.
Yeah.
And so we'll do that a little bit. Maybe in the next couple of years,
Yeah.
and see what happens. It's just it's a bigger gene pool, so to speak. So
Yeah, just want to say hi to Sebastian from over there in the UK, beekeeping gardening. Good to see you. I guess you're on night shift, or I forget what it is over there. He works on night shift.
so Swarmstead asked, did he say 0 treatments? Yes. Did nothing. Zero. No oxalic acid. No Apogard. No Apavart. No nothing.
This
Zero.
is what? This is Mark or Corey.
Who?
I mean, he's talking about treatments. Who
I
didn't? Who
thought he
didn't?
was talking about me. Or asking that question about me.
Oh, okay.
Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. I don't know, but I saw that. So yeah, it's no treatments just on those bees. Those are BSH. I didn't want to help them along. I want them to survive on their own. I don't want to mess with them. So, but they're doing great. I'm right now. I'm happy with them. So we'll see.
Let's see. We got.
What is Randy Oliver's method of cell builder?
I saw that.
Somebody mentioned.
I
Is
can't
that
remember.
Bob Benny? Something similar to what Bob Benny does with the divider board?
I to be honest, I can't remember. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it, but I just or you know,
Yeah.
but I just don't remember what it was.
Yeah. As far as Gary Smith, yes. Overwinter Queen, you can sell them. That's no problem at all. It's an Overwinter Queen nuke. No problem.
Yeah, and Swarmstead was asking about my no treatments on them. They're all of my hives out there, I really have good bees this year. I just need to switch out the queens so they don't fly away anyway. But yeah, they're all doing really well. I'm happy.
That's good. So, Darren, what's happening up in Pennsylvania there about 3 hours from my house?
Yeah, well, we had some nice weather. It's going to get cold again. So
Mm.
nothing happened. I'm just painting up some nuke boxes, and just getting ready for things.
Yeah, I bought some. James said he's on the road and poor service. And everything. Well, when you get back into the service area there, James, pop on in. And Todd wants to know whether it's an 18-hour, another 18-hour.
It's another 18-hour drive.
Charlie, I wanted to ask you about your hives. What'd you lose? 4 hives?
Yeah.
Hey, Brad.
That's bothering me. I've been thinking about that. Didn't you do Formig Pro last summer? Did you do that?
I did. Well, I do. My treatment program is I did Aprivar from July through August, and then I did Formic Pro when it got down about 75 degrees, low humidity for 2 weeks, and that was in September. And then I did OA. I'll say the end of October, going through the rest of the winter. I've never had any problems with, queen related deaths as far as Formic Pro. The main thing that I do is I always warn people. Number one, don't put it in when it's high humidity. Number two, it says 85 degrees up to. I like it 80 degrees or less before I'll put it in.
No, I thought last year was the first time you used that in the summertime, but you do that.
Pro?
Yeah.
No, I've used it several years. I'll tell you, and Brad's on here tonight, and there's Tom. Oop. Is that and I was watching. I got of course everybody knows if you went to Nobby that you got the videos of all the different speakers and stuff. And I watched Paul Kelly again. I did attend that meeting, and even though I've attended it, I watched the video again, and I still picked up stuff that he was talking about, and things like and another. And this is all queen related is what I'm going to get at is that like James McNally there, you look at some of his videos, look at, and this is something Paula Kelly made mention of that kind of struck me is that here you got this frame and it's wall to wall brood solid. That's the kind of queen you want in every hive. And then he says, if you get ones where brood is, a small patch of brood, or maybe it's a little bit holy or whatever, and which is a average or mediocre kind of a queen, and where James, of course, now with James, I do know that, number one, he buys breeder queens. Number two, he's probably been at it for over 5 years or more. Selective breeding or traits and things like that and genetics. And he now has this, every one of his hives, we're talking 8 frames of wall-to-wall brood on both sides in those frames. And I'm like, yay, that's what you're looking for. And that's the kind of queens we want in our hives. And, it's, I guess what I'm getting at is just, I'm starting to, get into the fact that, hey, a lot of our problems about overwintering or whatever is pretty much queen related. And when you get into the commercial level, I think that you find that's why you see them. They're either requeening once a year, every year, or every 2 years. They're also looking at that queen. I think, you watch Ian on there and he's evaluating those queens. And if they're not up to the par, they're out, they're gone. And they're going to be replaced as soon as he's grafting. And he's also, grafting his own stock. And that was some things, complaints that he had just when he had to buy all them queens and packages in that, there's always good things about bringing in new genetics, but he liked his stock. They were calm. They weren't, aggressive. I think he got some of them buckfasts and they were world's worst. And because they were blowing up in their face and everything. So how you doing, Doug? How's everything up in winter heaven?
Pretty white.
I see that.
Pretty white.
I know. I watched that video. I was like, goodness. And I don't know how many, what was it? Centimeters you said? I don't know how many inches that is, but it looked like a foot or better. More snow than I want.
Well, we got about a foot on Sunday, and then we got about 16 inches on Wednesday.
Yeah, you can have all that. Spring is, we're supposed to be in the 60-degree mark there all next week, I think. So that's, let's see, that's 16 Celsius in your terminology and all. So we're happy with that.
You know what, Charlie? I printed up one of those sheets, but it's on the counter behind me. It just didn't grab it.
Yeah, well, it's handy for me. But now that's what I've started. It's like the light went off when I was listening to some of these videos or these, speakers and stuff. Like there's the next level. There's the bar that you need to raise up in your apiary. You need to be vigilant on the age of your queens and also grading your queens as far as whether they're up to par or not, up to whatever standards you're looking for. Is that pretty much what you do, Doug? I know you got 300 plus hives. Is that what your son does, or?
No, we have to buy queens for early spring. Most of our queen rearing is for nukes for fall, put them with the fall and replacement for next year.
Right. Now, but what I'm getting at is when you're going through your hives, you're sitting there evaluating your queens. I presume you're looking for that, you're looking for a queen that's going to really slam the brood out in frames. And so you got good population and they're not going to go down on you and stuff like that. Or do you have a plan where you replace those queens every 2 years or every year or something like that?
A lot of ours they're replacing themselves, but we'll go through them in the spring. If we got one that, is lagging, that queen will get pinched and we'll put one of these replacement queens in place of that.
Right. If they're lagging, they're not really doing their job. I got one out there right now that it was in one of my nukes and I put it in the spot and it's went through the winter, but it's not gangbusters by no means as far as, 10 frames of bees or anything like that, as far as the size of the box and everything. I haven't filled the box up full of bees. That's the main thing that I can say about that one. And that would probably be I know that Ian or even anybody in commercial field will look at that and like, all right, that one's got to go. We got to get something new in there up and running. So anyway, how you doing, Brad?
Hey, Charlie. Doing good. How are you guys?
All right. Not too bad.
Good,
Things are
good.
starting. Weather's
talking
starting.
Queens, and I had to jump in. One of my
Yeah,
favorite
well,
subjects.
I mean, Todd was talking about setting up a cell builder tomorrow, I think it is. And
Nice.
and I'm always interested on how everybody's doing it because I want to improve. That's one of my skills that is lacking as far as setting it up and getting a high, let's say a 90% success rate and that kind of a thing. And it's one of them situations in anything that I do is once I do it and understand it and actually go through it, then it's like, okay, now I know what to do. And it's like last year I did the first time I ever did it. I set up the ramp and I shook the bees out in front of the hives, and and let them walk up in, and
Oh yeah.
I mean, that was a technique that I never thought about. Whereas they will walk in and they will stay there, and that's something that a lot of folks, I'll say not so much beginners, but 2 or 3 year beekeepers maybe haven't done that,
The
I think the smoke
young
overs
ones will march in and the old ones fly home. Sorry, Darren.
No, go ahead.
Oh, that was all I was going to say.
So
You wouldn't believe what's going out in Southwest Ohio. We got daffodils blooming, forsythia blooming. My sugar maple's getting close. Irises got flower heads, but they're not open yet.
Did you say
And
you
I'm
have
grafting
drones already?
14, about 10 cells. I'm not doing many. I actually got flying drones already. And that's a month early. It's usually about, well, I would say, yeah, it's almost a month early. It's usually about the 1st of April. Unbelievable. And then we're supposed to have 70s next week. So
That's crazy, Tom. That's early. That's almost too early.
I'm only doing 10 cells because, well, I talked to 4 beekeepers all within 3 miles of me, and they all got drones in their boxes. So in another week, they'll be flying.
I'm nowhere near that. So I'm not far from you.
Yeah,
Really.
I know, it's crazy. And I think Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all supposed to be 68, 72 degrees. Then rain on Friday. So, yeah, I pulled out one of the ones that fell. That was only like 4 frames of bees. It's 8 frames of bees now. It's like crazy for this early.
well,
Hey, that reminds me. When you're looking at frames of bees, a full frame of brood, not bees, but just cap brood, you have to, and it's 1/2 of the frame, one side of the frame. That's when those hatch. That's going to equal 1.5 total frames, because
Yeah.
when you watch a bee crawl across the cappings, they span across 3 cells.
Right.
So it's going to be, whatever you see, times it by 3. That's how much you're going to get. Because when they're in the cell, they're sticking straight up at you.
Area wise. Yeah. That's right.
What's
That's
Todd,
right.
That 8 frames had 3 full frames of brood on both sides.
So that's 9
next
frames.
2 weeks, yeah.
That's 9 frames of bees. He
I'll be
better
putting
do
up-
something.
This
So one
week,
full frame.
next week, I'll be putting a box on it.
one full frame equals 3 bees, right? Or 3
Well,
frames
okay,
of bees.
so-
3 frames of bees. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no. 1/2 is
One side.
one
Well-
side of a frame that's completely full is 1.5 total frames. If
Okay.
it's both sides are full, that's 6 or
It's multiplied by 3. It doesn't matter what
by 3. Yeah.
area you're talking about. It could be a square inch or a whole frame.
Yeah.
Multiply it by 3.
Okay. I was wondering that, Todd. I'm glad you said that because I saw a video. I forget who did the video. I was binge watching yesterday, and somebody said like 1 frame of bees equals, or 1 frame of brood equals 4 frames of bees.
The only person I've ever heard say that on a video was Randy Oliver.
I actually heard it from one of Ian's videos about 3-4 years ago, I think, and it made total sense. It's like, yeah, they do cover 3 cells.
I don't watch those videos.
So, another month from now, you got 6 frames of brood bricks of, all the way across. In 2 or 3 weeks, you now got 18 frames of bees.
Mm-hmm.
And they're
Yeah,
swarming.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tom, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got about 3 frames of bees because the rest of them are in the trees.
Well, that's what a lot of people don't realize. They just said, well, I just looked at them 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And there were 6 frames of brood. Everything was good. Yeah. That 3rd week, they're gone.
Yeah, 2 weeks, all that brood is
and
empty
James,
now.
I was looking at James. He said he already killed his first round of queens. Oops.
Wow.
I'm not sure what he did there. They're not even out of the barn yet, are they? I don't think.
No, that short he had the other night said 3 more weeks. I think he said.
That's right. That's he did, didn't he?
Yeah.
So
So I'm only
There he
going
is.
to do about 10
He-
queens.
Hey, boss.
So yeah,
Hey,
Ian is
hey,
the one
Ian.
that I learned that trick from.
we're talking queens, Ian.
Hey,
Um,
not to cut you off, Charlie. I got a question because VIA honeybees is on here. Last night on Ricky's live, they mentioned a frame feeder they were using. It was only like the width of one frame, I believe they said. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What
They,
is that?
they showed a picture. It was yellow and it was pretty skinny. My
who was,
guess would have held like 3/4 of a gallon.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering
um,
where to get that at.
Yeah, I don't know.
what person mentioned that?
VIA. I don't know if it's VIA
Oh,
or
oh,
VIA.
you mean
Tom
Tom and Melissa?
Yeah.
Melissa.
Oh, okay,
Maybe they'll jump on.
Anil. That's what it's called, Darren. Anil.
Okay.
That's one of them plastic hives and stuff.
Hmm.
But what's your comment on that, Brad? I mean, something that I know, like I was listening to Paul Kelly, and we're talking about, the quality of how much the queen is laying versus, I'll say corner to corner, like slabs of brood. And I've seen James's videos where he'll have at least 6 frames like that in one box, if not more. Of course, he's been rearing, breeder queens and selection and all that stuff for 5 years or more.
Well, a pattern will tell you a lot about the queen. It'll tell you about,
Yeah.
if she's well mated, if she's a healthy queen. It'll also tell you some things, perhaps whether or not there's some disease or anything involved, right? Which a disease isn't necessarily a genetic problem with the queen. Sometimes there is a genetic component, but yeah, your pattern definitely tells you a lot, and that's why when I make nukes here to sell, I want the queen to lay up a couple of frames in that nuke before I hand it off to customer, because it protects both of us. It assures the customer of a good laying queen, but it assures me too, because they come to pick it up, I can show them that pattern and say, "This is a good queen, right? You see what you're getting." So when they get home and they phone me 3 days later and say my queen is dead, so she was alive when she left here, right? You saw it, your own eyes. So it protects both, buyer and seller. So yeah, I mean, James talked to me about something when he was here that I had never really thought of, because one of the most important traits I think that you can select for, if you can, is success wintering. So I was always kind of going for my oldest queen, which one's wintered 2 times, 3 times, thinking, well, that's really some good genes. Even Randy Oliver talks about that. That's number 1 trait. His best advice is he says he never breeds from a dead queen. You always want the one that's come through winter. But James talked about the theory that perhaps in an older queen, there's viability of sperm might not be the greatest. So then maybe that queen isn't going to spit out the best genetic components for a new queen. I don't know what there is to that, you know. So there's both trains of thought there, right?
Right.
I don't know. And you can have an older queen. There's nothing wrong with her. She's just an older queen. She's running out of juice, so her pattern doesn't look very good. So it doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong with the genetic selection of that queen. So like everything in beekeeping, it's not 100% rule that you can be assured what you've got in a queen just by the pattern. Like you can tell a lot about it, but not necessarily everything.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to do is like, okay, I had these hives die on me, and they were new queens, but I think that they weren't made it all that great. And um, I'm just like, you're trying to figure out what to do so it doesn't happen again. But I don't think you can really, you know, do that. I guess is the best way I guess, to explain it. It's going to
Well,
happen.
I think the easiest thing is if you can narrow down your failure to something that you did wrong, because that's the easiest thing to change, right? If you say, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I did this wrong, all my bees died," and so then you can say, "Well, let's just not do that again." The worst thing is if maybe you can't narrow it down to what happened, or sometimes we're unwilling to say, "Well, that was my doing, that was my fault." And the things that are your fault are the only things you can change, right? You can't
Right.
change other
Well,
stuff.
well, genetics and stuff. Yeah, Ian. Yeah, I bought my lifter from Boris. Yeah,
Hey, so I have something to throw out to the group as far as drones. So, Randy Oliver says it's the second year that the queen uh, starts laying that specific drone quality that you're looking for. It's not that first year, but it's the second year. But here's the thing. Charlie just mentioned bad matings. I had bad matings last year too. I know for sure. That's what the deal was, and I'm sure other people have. How recently have we been doing this? Taking I can't talk tonight. Taking drone frames and cutting them down, putting them in the freezer, thereby thinning out the drone population in our own areas. If we have a lot of people, a lot of beekeepers around us doing that, and all of a sudden the drone population is smaller. So I know that's not going to have a huge effect, but it has to have some little tiny effect. And I'm wondering if some of these places that have bad matings or not the best matings, if that might be an issue, because I know a lot of guys that do that for mite control.
Well,
I
that
think
touches on
I think
something
that's a
Keith
bad
Delaplane
idea,
talked
Todd.
about.
I mean,
Like he
killing those drones, because they've done studies. Queens that get mated by 30 plus drones have eightfold less issues with mites. I mean, they've done studies on that already. They said they get mated with 40 of them. They're basically, you don't have to treat them at all, just because they get the diversity of genetics. So I put a drone frame in every one of my hives, not to kill them, to raise them.
Yeah. And what were you going to say, Brad?
Well, I was just thinking that touched on something that Keith Delaplane talks about. He really accentuates diversity, and he just says the more you have, the more diversity you have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you think about if you're going to free some of those frames and kill some of those drones, who's to say that you're not killing the one that would have been the fastest drone to catch the queen, right? So now so you've killed the fastest one, so now your queen's going to mate with the second fastest one, right? Overall.
Yep.
So I believe in that. I really do believe in that. Just flood the thing. The absolute more drones, the better.
Yeah, and that's what the plan is for me with those VSH hives. I want those genetics flying around here, and the only way really to do that is make a story frame or put a green frame in there, and that's what works. Helps the population. But I don't think it's a major issue right now. But I do know of a lot of people, at least like I said, in my area. Oh yeah, we take dozens of drone frames. I've got a commercial guy about 3 miles away from me. He takes dozens of frames of drone and puts them in his freezer to kill off the mites.
What could that amount to, Todd? Like 10% of the drones? Probably less than that, really, if you think about it.
True, but I mean, it's something, you know.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, there's got to be
think one of the
5,000
big
drones on one of those frames. I've seen those frames laid up one into the other, top to bottom, both
mhm.
sides. That's a lot of drones.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I
Doug.
think one of the big causes of poor mating is the weather. It can have an awful effect on the mating.
Mhm.
Sure it can. Yeah.
I mean, that was something like I had queen issues about 4 or 5 hives last summer, right in the middle of honey season. I dropped some nukes and stuff in there. And then I had that one hive that I think I asked Brad about it. It was so late in the season, we had no drones. You could not see a drone in a hive. And she just couldn't get mated. And that was the one where I took those bees and shook them out to the different nukes to repopulate, them and all. And so that's why I suspect it's, queen issues is what I had this year.
So
anyway.
Tom, you're sticking a drone frame in every one of your hives?
One of them gets a drone frame. I'm trying to get as many drones in the air as I can get because I'll be grafting probably about 100 queens this year. Well, 70 to 100.
When are you going to start, Tom?
I'm starting next week with
All right.
just 10. Yeah, because everybody's got drones flying or walking on their frames, and they will be. I mean, I figured right now if I graft next Thursday or Friday, depending on which day's the day it's not raining, I think Friday is a Thursday, that queen will be flying on April Fool's Day. Right around that, she'll be able to fly, doing the calculation. So that's another 3 more weeks. So I figure by then, all those drones will be mature and flying.
Well, if you're
Well, when are
getting
you going
swarms,
to, what type of
you'll
cell
be
boat
able
are you
to
going to
start
set up, Tom? Sorry,
I'll be
Doug.
doing that on Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday, probably Tuesday.
I was just saying, if you're starting to get swarms, you should be able to start grafting, should you not?
Oh yeah, I mean, you can graft before the swarms start because those queens are already 17 days. If you count the first days of the egg, plus another 7 days after that before they can fly. Those virgins. So you're looking over 3 weeks.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does anybody know the real number, the real time that a drone is viable? We know that they take a while to mature after they emerge from the cell, and I think that is about 10 days or something. So then through their life, then how long is that drone viable? Like how often do we have to continuously replace those drones if we want to graft over a period of time?
Good question, Brad.
Above my pay grade.
Don't know.
I just wondered if anybody knew that. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
I missed that. It was, how long does it take for the drone to be mature? Or
Like
How
No,
long?
so you have
long do they
drones.
stay
We know
mature?
the life
Wait a
cycle. We
minute.
know the life cycle that the egg is laid in 24 days emergence, and then it takes a period of time. I think it's 10 days ish, maybe 14 days ish. So we're looking at a month after egg lay to have a drone who's sexually mature and ready to mate. Now, so how long then is that drone viable for that job? Right. So it's not just a matter of if I want to graft for 2 months or 3 months in the summer. It's not a matter of creating all these drones once, right, in the spring and saying, oh, I've got lots of drones. And then what period of time then is that drone? What's his lifespan? What's his viability lifespan?
his lifespan is a couple of months. So it says anywhere from 55 to 60 days is his max.
Okay.
So I mean, think about it.
Yeah,
He's
so
flying every day, all
then
day.
is that inferring then that he's sexually viable for that 60 days?
Mm, Well, I think that's the same principle as Randy Oliver. You know, he can't mate when he's dead.
Don't mate with a dead drone. Well, I
Yeah,
think
no.
that's valid. Though. You could go. That drone could live for 50 days, and then
Yeah.
maybe
Oh,
because I
okay.
mean,
Yeah.
I'm going to live hopefully another 20 years, but
I
right?
understand what you're saying. So yeah, I mean, his lifespan is 55 days, but maybe he's only sexually viable for 30 days, but he's
Yeah, that's
still
what I'm
alive
asking.
for those other 20 days,
Yeah,
25 days. Yeah, I get
I
you.
mean,
I understand.
it would make sense that he's viable for until the end of his life,
Hmm.
really.
I
But I
would,
just wondered if
I
anybody
would
knew that.
think on the, I would think on the brood frames, the drone frames that I put in there, I think they go through at least 2 cycles during the flow because they usually don't backfill that with honey till the end. So I would think there's drones from now starting to, well, April to May and maybe into June. And then
Yeah,
I
see,
think they start backfilling about that
that's
time, what
regional.
I've seen.
Don't forget that's regional, Tom.
Right,
Like
yeah, right.
that statement would be very different for me.
Yeah, yours it's yeah, shortened real quick.
Well, and
They might only do one
it's not just
cycle.
that I'm different. Every region will have a different schedule for that, right?
Right, right.
Hey, Brian.
Hey guys, how's it going?
All right.
I got a couple things I want to add to the conversation. Number one,
Go.
it's clear as the season is starting, these conversations are getting a whole lot better, right? So the conversations on our live streams, because people are getting in their bees, have become much more lively the past couple of weeks. So keep it like this one's starting off strong, and I'm sure it's going to continue. That's my first piece. Second piece, and then I'm going to jump off and let you guys continue talking because I'm working tonight, is the role of drones in an open mated system. And I know, Tom, we were commenting a little bit back and forth in the chat. I'm curious about people's perspective on, I'm a believer in keeping drones in the colony, by the way, in general. But now that I'm getting to the place where I'm thinking about selective breeding, I'm thinking of times where I might want to be pulling drones out because those are genes that I don't want in the mating yard, I don't want them out there mating with my good queens. So I know, Tom, you talked about the genetics you've gotten in the past that you're relying on to produce good drones, but you've caught a bunch of swarms as well. Are you taking that unknown genetic pool out of your mating? And that's my
Well,
curiosity for all of you guys. What does the role of removing drones play in the genetic selection of an open mated breeding program? Does that make sense to everybody?
yeah, and that's
Cool.
a good point, Brian. When I said
And I
all
don't
of
know.
them, that's all my
I'm throwing it out there. I'm looking for answers, and I'm going to get off. I'm working tonight, but I'd love to hear a couple of thoughts on that.
I only have one
and
comment
don't
on
put
that. And my only comment on that is going again back to Dr. Keith Delplane
Yeah.
talking about diversity. So if you start selecting against things, what you're doing is reducing diversity. And
Brad, I'm in a way
he
different situation than you, though. I'm in a metro area where I'm fighting diversity. I've got too much diversity coming in from other places. I'm looking to build a better stock here. Does that make sense?
yeah.
I'm
But
always
Yes, it does.
drones.
However, if
nature
I could
loves
again
diversity.
paraphrase Dr. Delaplane,
Yeah.
there is no such thing as too much diversity.
Nature
Okay,
loves diversity.
and I know what your nature abhors a vacuum, and you start creating a vacuum, and nature will fill it. And so I'm just wanting to kind of throw that in that there is actually, it's a real thing to not play God too much.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And I understand what people are trying to do and specific things that people are trying to do. I'm going to use Randy Oliver's mite control, his mite tolerance project that he's been doing for a number of years. the reason that I admire that project so much is he's not selecting for anything. He's selecting against queens who don't handle the mites, right?
Yeah.
He's not selecting for anything. If you're good with your mites, that's fine, and he's not selecting for anything else. He's selecting against queens that don't handle their mites, that can't control their mites. So he's not dictating at all how this is happening. He doesn't even know. He doesn't care. He'll say, "I don't care. I don't care how they're doing it. I don't care how they're doing it. What's important is that they're doing it. So I don't want to dictate to them. I don't want to come up with some kind of a formula and say, this is how you have to beat the mites." Because his theory is that the bees will figure out how to beat the mites. All he has to do is kind of support that and select against the bees that are not beating the mites, right? Basically, it's, and Dr. Seeley has said this, when Varroa arrived in North America, if we had just let the bees die that died and not treat for anything for 5 years, we would not have a problem. Now, that's him using his crystal ball based on what he knows about, bee behavior and whatnot. So that's the kind of thing I think that Randy's doing in that breeding program, is he's kind of accelerating that. And it's almost like a heaven forbid treatment free person saying, hey, if they die, they die. That's kind of the same thing, except he's not doing that. He actually will treat the ones that are not handling their mites, but he's not going to breed from them, right? So that's kind of all I have to put in that. But I understand when people are trying to select for certain things and they're trying to get, you got some mean bees. I don't like mean bees, and I will definitely select against mean bees.
Yeah.
So that's drones.
Yeah.
The mean bees comes from the drones, so you have to control the drones.
And that's the only time, Brad, I've ever really pulled drones, is it's from a colony that has really mean genetics. I was like, I don't want those genetics out there.
No, you
I actually think it's
Right.
a healthy thing for colonies to have drones. If you pull drones out of the colony, they're going to make more if they're healthy. So you're actually asking them to use more resources to replace what you just took away that they would have been putting other places. So
studies have shown that devoiding a healthy colony of drones demoralizes the bees a lot.
Yeah. So in general, I'm all for that idea. And I've always used foundationless frames, not like the story frames, but I think they're a great idea.
Very similar. Yeah.
Because I've hated killing the drones in between the boxes. I want to give them a space to make drones, so they're not forcing drones into a place that I don't like them. So
keeps your boxes a lot cleaner too, doesn't it?
That's right. Absolutely. So I go and work someone else's box and I'm cleaning up all their drone comb. And I don't have to do that in my colony because I give them a frame, just like your story frame. I give them a foundationless frame. Every colony has a foundationless frame to make drones. But as I'm thinking about go ahead, Brad.
Oh, so I was just going to say I discovered that by accident, because I always did use drone frames, and then I got a job as a bee inspector, and I started inspecting other people's hives, and I'm thinking, what's all these? Why they put drones everywhere? Like, what is this? I'd never seen this before, right? Because I'd only been in my hives, and I realized, oh, okay, I'm giving them place to play. They have to find the corners in these other hives.
Yeah. Here's how I found it out by accident, Brad. I was going to be cheap one year and I was going to do foundationless frames just to save the cost of foundation. So as I was pulling out splits, I was putting in foundationless frames for them to expand. And of course they used them to make drone, not worker brood, because that was the availability for it. So it just became a mistake that was an opportunity. And I was like, well, this is actually a really good idea.
You draw your, if you want worker, draw your foundationless in a nuke.
Yeah.
They won't draw.
Or give it to swarms.
Easily. Yeah.
So thanks. I just wanted to kind of further that conversation on the male genetics role.
Uh-oh.
He really cut off.
He did the Irish goodbye.
So
If he asked me a question.
My question to that is how do you select the right drone genetics then? If that drone has the genetics that you want, or how do you figure that out?
Well, that's just it. And Russell's saying, yeah, but Randy takes his bees to an isolated ranch to control the genetics. Yes and no. He's not controlling his genetics, and that's what there. Todd and Bob and I watched one of his presentations, and we dissected this thing. We just sat on this video
For
for
like
hours.
3 hours.
And one of the things that really stood out was at the beginning of this video, near the beginning of this video, he talked about you can select for things, you can select against things. And you know, Russell says, but Randy's taking his VHS, I assume you mean VSH, bees to an isolated ranch. No, they're not VSH bees, because Randy doesn't care how they're doing. He doesn't know if that's a mechanism, and he doesn't care because he's not selecting for VSH. He's selecting against bees that don't control their mites, right? And I think we can all agree that that's a behavior that is worthy to select against. But he's not selecting for anything else. He's not. Of course, with the caveat about the spicy bees and dead queens. You can't breed from a dead queen, all that kind of stuff. But that's normal stuff. And he also made the point that if you select for something, you're going to lose something else.
Yep.
There is no free lunch. You're going to select for something, you are going to lose something else. So selecting against a trait is, I think it's genius, really, because again, he's just saying, hey, if you can't control your mites, you don't belong, and make them figure it out. Pick out the few that do. If you could see his graph that shows how many colonies he grafted off of the first year of these queens that were tolerating their mites, were handling their mites okay. I can't remember the exact terms that he uses because they're pretty technical. But it goes up. He's got 2 colonies that handled their mites okay, and next year he's got 4, and the next year he's got 20, and the next year he's got 50, and the next year he's got 200. So
And-
it's a slow start.
And so to be clear and to clarify, Brad, when we watched the video, he was showing mite washes of 0s and 1s and 2s. He was only propagating or selecting the queens that had 0s. He wasn't doing the 1s and 2s. He
Right.
just did 0s.
Right.
And his stock, if you want to call it that, are all from that past experience of being virtually clean. And that's what he's looking for. He's like you said, Brad, he's helping them. He's helping them along.
Just do the normal thing. And yeah, Mike makes a point here, about his queen rearing yards. Fine. Going back to what we're talking about, drones.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He talks about, hey, you want to do this? Just give all your neighbors free queens, right?
Yeah.
Just say, hey, I'm running a breeding program. I'd appreciate it if you would use these queens and generate drones that, just helps them out a lot more. And if I ever get to do that kind of thing, I'll definitely do that, because there's not very many beekeepers around me, so I could easily supply them with queens.
And I think didn't he say it's a 20,000 acre ranch or something like that? I mean, it's a humongous ranch.
Yeah. When I Brian brought up, when I catch swarms, I put them in a second yard I have, an out yard, and I actually look at the drones. I don't even look at I look at the queen, but I look at the drones. I try to find the ones I'll bring back into my yard, ones that have multicolored drones, because I know that queen then is a well diverse queen. And I'll bring, and then if she's dark or pretty dark, that's a really, definitely one I'll bring back into my apiary.
So Jeremy is saying if you're trying to do what Randy's doing with around 100 hives, you'd run into the issue of needing to bring in new genetics if you graft off queens 5 or so each year. Yeah, that's the diversity again, right? You can't narrow down too small. You have to draft off as many as you can, but again, you need that selection criteria. So it's no small thing.
No. Hey, Brad, since we're on this topic of drones, you explain it better than I could think it. Can you, when we were watching that video that night, there was a segment about the second year
That
drones.
hurts my head.
You know what I'm talking about, right? It's just
Yeah,
like,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So
He said that there's a drone lag. There's a year drone lag,
Yeah, it's grandfather.
right?
Drones,
Because
Yes.
current drones are the grandfather's genetics.
if you think about it, you unlike people, there is no contiguous patriline among drones because drones have no fathers, right? 100% of the genetic material from a drone comes from his mother, right? So it's always from the queen when it concerns the drone. So you graft a queen this year, and she's not likely going to contribute to the drone pool in a very meaningful way this summer. She may contribute a little bit, but she's probably not going to be a major contributor to the drone pool. So that genetic material from that queen won't make it into the drone pool until next season. So you can graft off a queen right away. I mean, I've grafted off mating nukes. Talk about turnover. And so you can do that, and you get that genetic turnover right away. But it's the same drones every time that new queen mates. It's the same drones.
Yeah, it does. It hurts my head too. But yeah, you say it so much better than I can explain it. Or
There's just a dotted line, like you can follow a queen line all the way up, straight line, right? But drone is always got a blank spot. It's a broken line. There's no contiguous patriline for a drone. It always goes back to the queen. You got a drone, you want to find genetics, you got to go back to the queen. You get the queen's genetics, you go to her mother. You get the drone's genetics, you have to go back to the queen because it's just a queen. There's no father.
Boils down to your own grandfather, Todd.
Pardon me, Doug?
I was thinking
It
about that. You end up
boils
being
down
your
to-
own grandfather.
Yeah. It boils down to your own grandfather.
Matt's got a answer. It says, how come drones are so diverse in color if they only came from mother genes? I don't know.
Good question.
I don't know.
I don't know much about genetics. You'd have to talk to a guy like Keith Delaplane for that.
Well, hey guys, I'm going to jump off. I'll be in a chat, but nice talking to you.
Nice
We
to see you.
didn't
Darren.
bore you out, did we? Did you, Darren?
Darren.
I actually got things to do, and I actually just wanted to jump on and get from that information on what that frame feeder was.
Frame.
Oh,
And have you been in your bees before you leave? Have you been in your bees recently?
But 2 weeks ago I was out there last weekend though. They're all still going, so they're looking good.
That's good.
Good.
All right, I'll see you.
See you later.
yeah,
Yeah, Darren.
I was late getting on because it's raining outside, and I was out catching worms. I was getting free worms instead of free bees for my garden. I was throwing them in my garden.
And then James has got a question here. Dead out.
Well,
So
that's a good question.
Oh boy,
That's a good question. We were just talking about this the other
drop
night.
the hammer on this one.
why would you want to spray bleach on them?
There's research that shows that when you have a dead out, you need to figure out why your bees died.
Yep.
Right? If your
Yeah.
bees starved, maybe not such a big deal. But if your bees died of viral load, there's going to be
Wow.
viruses persist on that comb for a long time. So don't
Hey,
dump
Mark.
new bees back on that comb. Right?
And that's so freaky to think about.
So that, I don't know about bleach water. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to do it. It was suggested to me to spray it with, what was it, Todd? Isopropyl alcohol, 90% or 95%. Who's messing with the mic?
I don't know.
So that was suggested to me to spray it with isopropyl alcohol. That'll supposedly kill viruses.
There's the expert. 16 chromosomes. and
Bonus 16 chromosomes.
Queen's got 32.
Wouldn't the alcohol go hard on the wax, Brad?
I don't know. I've never tried it. It was only suggested to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I would think it would go hard on the wax, but I'm not sure.
If they starved her, I wouldn't do it.
Well,
Yeah.
if they starved, then you know why they died. And
Yeah.
it's not because the comb's dirty.
Poor
It's 'cause it
beekeeper.
didn't have enough feed in it.
And,
Well,
you know, Randy
I
Oliver did.
personally take that seriously. Personally, go ahead, Todd.
Randy Oliver did talk a little bit about when he looks at a dead out, like, you know, if he goes and visits somebody and there's a dead out, he'll look at the frame from, or he'll look across the cells from the bottom of the frame up. So you're staring at the ceiling of the cell. And he said if there's, you know, white buildup, that's, you know, mite poop.
Right.
And then he instantly knows that's, you know, basically the culprit of why the colony did not survive. It more than likely died of you know, mite load.
So there's stuff coming in here pretty fast. Dry cut. I assume freezing frames would reduce survivability of viruses. No, it doesn't.
No.
And it doesn't.
Heat would more.
Heat would, but it's shown that you need heat that's high enough to melt the comb.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's not going to work either unless you want to, you know, do what I did last summer and just render everything down.
Yeah.
Acetic acid fumigation does kill nosema spores, but not, you know, deformed wing virus and black queen cell virus and whatnot.
Pull the frames out and scrape the wax and throw them away.
It's, well, time will clean them up, right? If you can keep them away from the wax moths, time
Yeah.
does clean it up, but it's unclear how much time. I think you're looking at a
Right.
matter of months. So if you're looking at a matter of months, you're looking at a season, right? That's not using those brood chambers for this season, and that's a tough thing to do.
Yeah. So,
Well,
what's the next subject?
Interesting conversation tonight.
I guess we covered that.
We hit the end of the internet.
Yeah.
Hey, Todd, you posted today that swarm. Did that come from your box?
Yep.
You can't go. You can't go over to your neighbor's property and get it.
Well, you know, like I made a comment in the, I think it was actually commenting back to Brad in the video, in the video part of that. I'm a big fan of German Shepherds. I love German Shepherds. But if I jump that fence and my feet hit the ground, they will come out of somewhere, a bush, something, you know, and I'm not fast
Gotcha.
enough.
You gotta have your pockets
There's
full
no
of
way
doggy
in hell I
treats.
can outrun them.
You don't go prepared with doggy treats?
Hey, I've seen them. I don't think I can fool them with doggy treats.
I would bait one of your empty hives and see if you can get them to fly back into one of your boxes.
Already did. I baited a hive with a swarm wrestler, put it on my side of the fence, and maybe we'll see. I'll go out there tomorrow and see if they caught on to it. But when I was out there, there was a lot of traffic looking at it. So who knows?
Right.
But
Well, good luck.
Yeah, that queen was booming, boom. They were bearding in the middle of February. I've never had that. So
Yeah.
It was crazy. But yeah, those German Shepherds, they're too fast for me now. Maybe I could have outrun them 20 years ago. But,
Right. I wouldn't mess with them either.
and freaking ribeyes are like $12 a pound. I can't waste money on that, you know.
Bag of milk
Hopefully
bone.
fly back.
It's a milk bone world, and I'm wearing, or what is it? It's a dog eat dog world, and I'm wearing milk bone underwear.
Right.
You're starting to think when you're going to move hives out, Brad?
Well, I'm watching the forecast, but it ain't anytime soon. It keeps changing. It's looking like last week of March, really.
Wow.
Oh well.
Yeah, we were hoping to be feeding about the end of March. I don't know now.
Lloyd assures me that it's fine to leave them indoors, so I'm trusting Lloyd.
I like what Hope said.
Yeah, just take me,
Yeah.
invite me out for the day. You just have to outrun me. That's not hard.
Oh, man. I think I can't see the top of the swarm, but what I can see is at least 4 pounds, and I know there's more bees behind the
That's a big swarm.
leaves and stuff. It's a big.
Well, how far are you from the fence to the tree?
The bunch.
They're at 20 feet, 25 feet.
Okay.
If it was close, I mean, you could put a bucket on a thing.
Oh yeah, I thought about that, but I couldn't. I don't have something strong enough or long enough to do that. Yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. So if they come back, they
Right.
come back. If they don't, they don't.
There's a good chance to hit that box tomorrow or the
Well,
next day.
If they're there tomorrow morning, tomorrow's Saturday, so I'm going to go drive up the driveway and knock on their door and ask them, hey,
Right.
can you put your dogs away? There's a swarm in your backyard, I noticed. I'm not going to say they're mine. I'll just say, hey, I see a swarm in this tree that I could get for you, you know.
Right.
They're
That'd be a
on
big
5
favor.
They have 5 acres right there, so I mean, it's not like the bees are right up on their house, you know. But
Gotcha.
Are they decent people?
they are. The guy actually owned almonds. He's a retired farmer. He had a bunch of orchards, so he knows about bees. He did it for a long time.
Right.
Yeah, I just looked at the 15-day forecast, and there's only 2 nights where it's going below freezing, and it's 30 degrees. So just might be an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And the highs are all anywhere from 50 to 72 degrees. So I think
James-
that'll get everything blooming.
James says nights are going to be -2 and 3, which is 26 to 28 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right.
Nights
Chart.
at above 10 plus. So is that 50 degrees in your area? The way you look at that? That don't make sense. Is that reverse 50 degrees during the day and 28 at night? I don't know.
Charlie and Tom, do you guys have a weed out there called fiddleneck?
What's it called?
Fiddleneck. It's it kind of curl at the end of it. It's little yellow flowers, and it kind of curls like the end of a fiddle. You know how they carve the end of a fiddle? So they call it fiddleneck.
I've never heard of it.
Okay.
No, I've never heard of it either.
So when that when that pops out of the ground, that's my cue to start getting ready.
Our big thing
I know drones are going.
for us, I'll say dandelions is
Mhm.
our cue for nectar coming in.
Well, and like I don't know if you heard me, but it's like that's when the drones are more than likely around or out
Mhm.
flying. It's that time of year. Mother Nature knows, it's all by temperature in the soil. Boom, here comes the weed, and the bees know the same thing. So
Right.
there were a couple of cues that I just didn't believe. One was bearding in February, and the other was the fiddleneck. So I was like,
When the two Paulas and George last week said they had drones in their boxes and showed pictures of them video of them walking on their frames. I wouldn't even think of it. So I went out to mine and looked at a couple of mines and same deal. It's like, wow.
yeah,
We all said the same thing. This is the earliest ever.
yeah. Last week I think it was, or a week before, I said something about I think we're going to be 2 weeks early, and I was wrong. It's even earlier than that.
3 weeks. Yeah.
At least, yeah. This is the earliest I'll be grafting.
I didn't think California got cold.
It does. It's the thing is usually in February it's mild, but it's rainy and cloudy and windy all the time. And in March, beginning of March, halfway through March, it's about the same. But this year, it's just been a little different. So
Hey, James, you're back.
You betcha, Ben. A little bit better cell phone service here now.
That's good.
Yeah, I was
That's
saying
better.
our nights.
Better than what?
What's a? I was just gonna say our nights are lows of like -2s and 3s, and our
Yeah.
daytime hives are well around 10 and above. So
hey, Bob. Bob's in New Bern, North Carolina.
That means your flowers start blooming here in a couple weeks, James. The cold weather ones.
he's off at another trade show, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in North Carolina.
Yes,
Yeah, it's at that one that Ricky Rourke's at, I believe.
What's that?
Bob,
So
Oh,
is it North
darn
Carolina State
dang
Beekeepers?
phone.
so what you doing there, James? Where you at? You driving or what?
I think we lost them.
Yeah, I think we lost him.
He went back out of range.
You must be driving.
He is. I know he's driving.
Yeah, he's driving 18 hours somewhere.
That's what it was asked, what he's driving 18 hours.
He never did answer the question the first time because he got cut off.
So, well, that's the queen situation as far as we did a good job on that. Let's
I
see.
can tell you, Charlie, when I set up my my starter hive, I usually put one empty foundation, just foundation frame in there, and that's so they build comb on that versus on your graft. Then I'll put 2 frames or a frame and a half of pollen, a frame of brood to a frame and a half of brood, and then 1 frame of honey. Typically in about five or 6 frame. I got a 6 frame box that I use. So I try to get more pollen in there actually versus honey. And then just some open brood. And then I'll shake some nurse bees in there so they hit all that open brood.
So
That'll be the plan.
So what do you do? Pull the open brood out when you get ready to put a graft in?
Yeah, or I'll pull out one of the pollen frames or the half pollen frame. Or I won't, or I probably leave those in. I'll pull out the the honey frame if there's honey on the other frames, because I'll be feeding them 1-to-1 sugar water anyway, so they really don't need that much honey in it.
Right.
I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make in their starter colonies. Is I tried to mention that a little bit earlier. Young bees, absolutely, you can't get enough of them. But I think far too many people forget about the nutrition and the quality of nutrition that is required in those starter colonies. I sure wouldn't be pulling any pollen frames out of them. You know, and
No.
you know, I'd be making sure that those are the happiest smorgasbord bees that you could possibly get. And then I don't know if you guys have seen my videos. I will give them pollen frames. I'll give them pollen patties. I will give them honey. I will give them sugar water. I give them everything and anything they want. You know, the best selection of nutrition so they can pick what is best for the feeding of those queen cells. And I really think that is a key that is overlooked.
Yeah.
Well, then, are you putting any nectar frames in there, James? Or you just
Well, there's going to be some the nectar frames there. Now I use, you guys have seen, I use a 10 frame hive for my starter finishers. So yes, there's nectar on the outsides there for sure. But I try to make sure that there's a combination of pollen and nectar on both sides as best as I can. If I've got one frame that's all pollen, it'll go on one side of the graft. And if I have pollen on that side, I'll make sure there's nectar on the other side. I will make sure that it is as close to those queen cells as I can get, so those bees can go back and forth as fast or as often as they want. You know, to, like I said, really that nutrition is key to get into those queens early on in the development stage.
I know some people put pollen patties in the hive. I mean, I'm looking at, I'm sure they want the natural pollen over the patties, or is that still doable as far as
I do both. I
both?
give them the
Yeah.
I give them the selection. Let them choose.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that was another thing. There was a guy I seen somewhere, is he took pollen patties and he cut them in little strips, and they put the strips right on top of the grafting frames themselves. And
Right.
so the bees had more access, right, you know, direct access to that.
Yeah,
And,
I don't have time for that. That takes up way too much time. You know, I think you and I have talked about that lots, Charlie. If I can save, you know, a minute a hive, you know, that's 40 minutes an apiary. That's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's absolutely huge. So
Yeah.
There's one more thing I put in the box too. A lot of people don't do. I put a wet sponge in the bottom of it for water, because when they're making their cells and there's so many bees in that box, they need a lot of water.
well, it's interesting you touched on that because, well, I'm a bit of a bored beekeeper, so I've been playing around a little bit. And in the hive heaters there, I've put a bowl down in the bottom of the hive heater with a sponge in it to make sure that humidity level stays up.
Okay.
And actually, that was something that I don't know if Ian's still on here. That was something he suggested to me, and I think it had a lot to do with it. The other thing I found interesting is I couldn't get him to draw any cells until they did a cleansing flight. So that was a little bit interesting, you know, learning a little bit as well. So that cleansing flight was like turning on a switch.
Because they've been in the hive so long, or what?
I don't know. I haven't quite figured all that out yet.
Maybe it's a condition where they can't produce wax.
Possibly. Like I said, I haven't been able to I haven't been able to figure all of these things out yet. Just kind of playing around, right?
Right.
Of course, you're
Go
working with
ahead,
inside.
Charlie.
Yeah.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is you're working with these queens right now, James, is inside the barn.
Yeah, I've been trying to see if I can graft inside the barn. So
Interesting.
there's a lot of learning there that I seem to have more failures than successes right now, but that's part of learning. Failure just means I have to succeed a different way.
Right.
Right.
But to Doug and Brad there, yeah, our temperatures over here. Alan and I were talking about that today. We're supposed to hit, I think it's starting next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're into the teens, and it's not even freezing at night. It's I don't know. Right now, I'll be honest. This weather keeps up, I'll probably be out in a week and a half, possibly 2 weeks at the most, because it's not freezing at nights. My fear is, Jack Frost is going to come back and kick me in the butt.
We got a couple
Usually
of
does,
+8
right?
in the forecast, but we got enough snow. The nighttime temperatures are going to stay cool.
Yeah, well, I can cool the barn, but my concern is I don't know if you guys saw my short I put up there a little bit. I'm starting to see some stress in the barn, which I think has got. I'm still trying to trend a little bit of the barometric pressures and stuff like that too, to see how that plays with them. But yeah, especially the hives closer to the floor, which is an interesting fact. I haven't been able to figure out why, but the hives closest to the floor are starting to show more stress than the ones, say, on the second, third, or fourth level up. So I'm just wondering if maybe that cold cement has got something to do with that too. But the fact that we're starting to see the stress is what's starting to concern me a little bit. That's telling me that those bees are full.
All right. Well, we'll see how that works out. As far as like when you're doing nurse bees, are you going to other hives and let's say bringing a frame of brood up and whatever through a queen excluder to get to be able to shake them nurse bees out, or are you just doing a landing board or like a ramp in the front and shaking bees in front of the ramp?
You're asking me, Charlie?
Oh, anybody really.
Well, what I do is
What's
I'll
the
set
most
up my start.
efficient way?
I was going to say I'll start my starter finisher up a little bit in advance, and I'll find that brood that's hatching out, and that's what I'll start to put in there, and then I'll wait at least 4 or 5 days before I put a graft cell in there to make sure that I can knock down any of those cells.
Right.
Or when I'm selecting to try and boost it, I will try. I have enough hives that as I go through them, I'll try to find a cell that's hatching out and it's got no eggs or something like that on it, so I don't have to continually battle that round. I do like the idea of just shaking the nurse bees on the front. I mean, that's a surefire way to make sure that you don't have any rogue cells, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just getting ideas on how to to set up my builder.
I usually go into the box and I find the queen, and I'll move her off the brood frames temporarily. I put in a queen clip, then I can just pull those frames out and shake them right in, and then release her back in. Put the frames back in, and then let her back in, out.
Yeah. Once again, I don't have time for that. You got to remember, I'm managing,
Yeah.
these hives in basically 2 days a week. So time is of the essence, right? Shaking them out is quick, especially if they're all in the same apiary.
Yeah, but how many?
I wish I knew someone in the heating and air business, because I'd love to have a funnel that will span over the top of the hive, and it would come up to a little chimney, and then on top of the little chimney you have a box that's wide enough with plenty of room on both sides to shake a frame in and just let them, slide down into the box that you're shaking to.
Those tin bashers are hard to come by.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. If I knew someone that ran their own business, I could pay them. They could do it off the side one night.
So you're saying you're making a funnel to put nurse bees into the hive that way?
Or shake nurse bees, shake anything, But it would be something that a cover that completely covers the top of the hive, all the way around, like a lid. It'd be almost like a telescoping lid. You just put it on there, and then it angles up into a chimney type thing, and then like air vents that are in your home, they open wide. They open up wide right there at the vent, but behind it is where they have the 6 or 8 inch tubing that connects to that outlet. Well, you do the same thing on the top of this cover, and then on the top of that you connect a contraption that's big enough for you or allows you to shake a frame in. I've seen them. They're custom made. They don't they don't make them.
Why don't you just shake them on top of an inner cover? Put a box there, shake them on top of an inner cover, leave the top.
Yeah, you
open.
could do that. You could do that too. I'm just saying, you could take this top, you could go box to box, shake frames in, whatever you're doing.
Well, what about what like Ian has, where he took a tote and cut that thing out and put a bar around? I forget how he made it. Put a bracket around there where you set it right on top of a hive.
The thing about the tin is
Usually-
those bees don't have a grip on that tin. They'll just slide right in like you're a grade schooler on a metal slide. They'll just slide right in.
Forgive me.
The foundation
I
frame
think
and
I
the honey
missed
frame, I
something.
usually leave
Todd,
out,
what
put them in
problem
last.
were you trying
and
to
they're-
solve with that contraption?
Just shaking bees, like if you wanted to shake a bunch of nurse bees into a builder, you just one frame at a time, you shake them in. That also that neck on that thing also doesn't allow a whole bunch. Well, nurse bees aren't going to fly, but you're not, if you're trying to shake bees into other boxes like bulk bees, you want to keep most of them down, so it's not going to allow those bees to fly out when you're shaking them.
I may have I got distracted in some of the comments there. Are we talking about cell builders?
I'm just talking about a shaker. You could just some form to make a shaker, some form of a shaker that you could just shake bees into a builder. If you're doing bulk bees, whatever.
I just put a hive
Yeah.
buddy. I put a hive buddy on it and check away. Like you mentioned that tote that Ian made. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
I do exactly the same thing, just with a hive body.
Yeah.
And I got like
Building
100
my
of them sitting in the corner.
When I'm building my cell builder, I'll have the plastic foundation frame out and the food frame out because they go on the ends, and I'll slide the whole other 3 frames over and shake the bees actually in the box,
Mm-hmm.
the Norse bees. And then when I get done after doing 2 or 3 of them, then I just put the 2 frames in at the end. So, I leave a little bit of room to shake them in.
And Mike,
So
Minnesota Mike.
you're gonna focus on it. Oh, go ahead.
No, Minnesota Mike was just, they were guessing why your lower hives were stressing out in the shed. And all.
I have no idea.
I don't know. You say they're early on the bottom, James, instead of the top? You there?
It's always colder at the bottom.
He's in another
It's
dead
coldest
spot.
part of the building. Well, the concrete will be, the center part of the concrete will be 50, whatever their ground temperature is, 55 degrees.
Might be more
Center of the barn shed.
might be more humid at the bottom too.
Yeah. Could be humidity.
So, what does humidity do for the bees, I guess?
They don't like rain.
Yeah, I know that. Brian wants to know, Mater, do we use spirulina in your pollen patties? I don't. I know that Nancy, that usually comes on here, she was a big user of spirulina, and where you could buy pollen patties. And then
Tom in Connecticut uses that.
Tom Bacon was using
Tom
it.
Bacon, yeah.
He actually had really good things to say about it, didn't he, Todd?
Tom, yeah, he
Yeah.
enjoys giving it to him.
yeah, now
I think that's
he had the powder and he mixed it. I think mixed his own pollen patties.
I think it's pretty
That's right.
expensive though.
It is.
I see Dancing Bee is selling patties with it in.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
I make patties with the Apis biologics.
I
Yeah,
think they
same
have
thing,
that.
Todd. Or this year I bought it with Apis biologics in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I did at Nobby this year, Bee Expo. I bought it last year. I bought it this year. Actually, that's one of the things I have done here in the last. I put some pollen patties in a couple weeks ago, into some cut them up in small pieces, and they've took them much better this year than they did in the last. And then Brian wants to know apple cider vinegar and pollen patty mix. Not that I know of. I know that
Some people put a little bit of vinegar in to keep the mold
I
from
put that in my sugar
Yeah.
bricks and stuff like. I put some
Yeah.
white vinegar
the
in there.
sugar water.
I don't really
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
really worry about. I just buy white vinegar and put a splash in it. In that's what I've done this week. Also, I guess it was last night. I made up a couple sheets of sugar bricks. I guess there'd be about 15 or so in a sheet cake pan, just to have on hand. I went out there to Nukes and inspected here a couple middle of the day, and most everybody had plenty of food. There was one there that was a really robust hive that they still had food, but I'm like, like you say, in another week or so, they might not have food because of gearing up with brood. So I had some bricks left over, and I threw them in there with a shim. And let's see, Matt, he does the 15% global patties. I would have rather had the 15% global patties with Apis in it this year, like I did last year. But oh well.
One thing I noticed, Charlie, you guys never use liquid sugar feed in the spring. Like when we take the wraps off of our hives, pollen patties go on, and the syrup goes on. One goes with the other.
Yeah, you were mentioning that. I think it was last week, and kind of a nice tip there. There's some other people that do pour the sugar water to them, and to stimulate in order to build that brood up and everything. I just never did. I figured they had the honey in the box, they would take care of it,
We'll have lots of honey in the box come spring, but as soon as that syrup goes on, that's when at least our hives, they just start to boom then.
As far as brood goes.
Yeah.
And how long do you do that? How
We'll
long do
do
you
that
feed them?
until there's a good nectar flow coming in.
Okay.
which is late May.
All right. So
Yeah,
agronectar flow would be coming in. Well, it'll start in 1st of April. So it's about 2 or 3 weeks away. It'd be 3 weeks at least. And all that. Let's see. Tom there, they're feeding liquid syrup and patties right now.
yeah.
Maybe that's something I ought to try. Now, are you doing 1-to-1 right now, feeding that, or that's what you would feed?
Yeah, we'll feed 1-to-1.
Yeah. I've done that in the past years, but I didn't do it last year, and I won't do it this year because spring's already here. So there's no need. I mean, we went from winter right into spring. But in
You know,
fact, I'll
dry cut
probably
makes
be putting supers on in another week or two.
dry cut makes a
I
good
see.
point. So
Because I know my service berry is about ready to bloom, and when that blooms, that's a huge nectar source.
some years that happens to me here, and I would imagine in the Midwest it does a lot. But yeah,
Our
you're
pollen can be
forced to
6
feed.
weeks ahead of nectar.
What's that?
Our pollen can be 6 weeks ahead of nectar.
Really?
Yeah, I was going to say we're typically about 4 weeks,
Yeah.
but this year it's been about 2 weeks.
I never really, thought about that as far as is there more pollen coming in and not the nectar coming in? And
You know, I don't think I had a pollen. If I had a pollen dirt this year, I think it was 2 weeks in December. I've seen pollen come in all year, or not all year, but since last fall. There were some times where it barely came in, but it was coming in. But I know during the wintertime there was nothing producing nectar. So
Yeah,
it does happen.
I had pollen coming in till Christmas. That's when I finally got cold, and then pollen was back here just about the end of February. So we just had a couple months.
We'll get willow and then poplar as early here. And then last year we had so much pollen in our hives, we were worried there wasn't going to be any room for nectar, actually.
Yeah, the tulip poplars put out tons of pollen,
Yeah.
as poplars do.
maybe that's what I need to do right now. Put some pollen patties, or I got some pollen patties on some of my eyes. Maybe put a quart jar on top.
Couldn't
And-
hurt. If they don't want it, they won't take it.
Yeah. Well, that was another thing. I went out there today just to kind of glance at them a little bit. And I was watching some of the nukes, and I did start to see some actually there was a bee that landed on me, and it had some dark looking pollen on it on his leg and all that. So maybe that's what I need to do then. And I got that one hive that's a little on the weaker side, and that would stimulate them and maybe boost them. Russell says,
I saw our purple
back.
dead nettles about ready to start blooming about another week. Well, it's got flower buds on it. So that's usually a good sign too when that starts blooming.
Bob Benny has an entire feeding series on feeding syrup with pollen patties.
Yeah, he does it big time.
Yeah.
Well, our
Our-
idea is you want to make them think that there's a flow on.
Mm-hmm. Sparks up the brood nest.
Yeah, if you want comb built and all that's a good idea. If you want to pull nukes off them, it's a good idea to feed them early.
Yeah.
It's all depending on what goal you want to have.
Well, my thing is just to have a lot of bee population and make a lot of honey. That's my big goal.
So you might not want to stimulate them too much. because then you have swarming issues.
Well, that's why, like you say, I'm about ready to put supers on and demarium and all that kind of stuff, depending on the weather conditions. But I got like I say, I got those 3 nukes out there right now that I'm trying to repopulate where the original hives died. So if I can throw them into 10 frame here, hopefully Sunday after this rain or the beginning of next week, and throw a quart jar on them, to, keep the stimulation of, building them hives back up to maybe producing me a couple supers of honey would be great. And then I got this one that's it's in 2 mediums right now that, yeah, there's population in there, but it's like, maybe that would help stimulate them and also build that hive up. Maybe, this another learning tip here tonight that I need to possibly, jump in and experiment with. I got some hives are really super, super strong. And I don't know, usually around the Easter time, I'm usually taking a trip to Georgia to pick up a truckload of bees. So I want to make sure we don't have any swarms while I'm away for the weekend and that kind of stuff. So that's another thing I'm trying to, let's say, maybe get these hives set up for my summer or my honey production setup before I go down into Georgia. Not that they're going to make much honey, but give them that space that they need for keep them from swarming and all. So
we want to produce honey, so we want 2 deep boxes of bees, and we want them to the point of swarming. That's strong, and then put our honey supers on.
So that was always been the question between you and Brad. It's like, okay, you give them, quote, the space with putting the honey supers on. And I watched Paul Kelly talk about, I was at the conference, listened to him, and I just listened to him again on the program thing. And it's like, I tried that last year and they still had queen cells in there and all. So, of course, it was in more of a single brood chamber management situation. But you're leaving the 2 deeps on there, right, all summer long?
They're there 365 days.
Mm-hmm. So,
and the swarms, I don't know. We get swarms, but like we get awful busy about the time they start swarming. So we will pick up a few. But I've been in the yard when they've swarmed and watched them come out of the hive. And when I check that hive, you can't tell there's any bees have left. Like, it's still full of bees.
Yeah. And that was one of the other things that I kind of came up with after studying like Brad and your honey flow is different than ours.
Yeah.
Per a point of year. Now, April, May, and June is our swarm season. April, May, and June is our honey season, as far as the flow goes. So I don't know whether your swarm season is in the same time as your honey flow.
Yeah, it is.
It is. So
they'll swarm during the flow, but they'll swarm before too.
Yeah,
they can
a little
swarm
bit.
Late May, early June, and then
Right.
they can swarm through July too.
But then I also think about, especially with you, Doug, you got canola fields and you got that honey coming in like a freight train. So it's coming in so strong, stronger than we've ever experienced around
Yeah.
here where we're at, that I think they're so busy working the honey that they don't have time to think about swarming. At least that's what I kind of think.
Yeah, we'll still see the odd swarm at that time of year too. But
Yeah.
like there might be more. Like, what have we got? 8 yards, 9 yards, something like that. So we're not in them every day. They may be swarming that we don't know of, eh?
Right. And all that. So, but no, the stem, it's like it's kind of clicking here tonight. It's like, I got to try that. Where, I mean, we often sit around here to feed them in the springtime. And I'm like, no, I don't need to feed them in the springtime. And, maybe I need to try that and see, like I say, I've got this 1 week hive, and it's like, well, maybe I need to feed them and see how they react to it, and I'll build them up. That way they'll be better than what they are, hopefully.
I need to definitely feed my resource hives with some sugar water. I'll probably do that tomorrow or Sunday, just because I'll need steel brood from them here in 2 weeks to make those nukes up.
Right. Well, I mean, for me, my nukes are already in nuke boxes, so I'm usually just pulling the top nuke box off with the queen, with
Right.
the right stuff, and all that. Here's Mr. Mark.
I got some of those, but I want to do more.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
So, what's happening with Mark? Obviously, you're not truck driving tonight.
Oh, I haven't been in long, though. I've been all over the country this week. I've been out there by Tom's yesterday.
Yeah. I was just reading what Brian was saying here. Feed half the apiary and don't feed the other. See what the difference is. It's a good idea. I'll feed the weaker jobs and then see what the other ones do for me. So what's happening in the queen world, or what can you put it? We've been talking queens all night and cell builders. I know that you've set up your cell builders with the swarm impulse starting, and then I think you pulled the queen out and then cut the queen cells and then drop your grafts in and stuff like that, don't you, Mark?
Yeah, I don't try to force them to build cells. I get them to where they're already building them. It just seems to be easier and quicker. I go in, get the queen out, and I run double deep, so that takes time to find her a lot of times. That's the worst part of it. And then get all the cells out. And usually, if they're going to swarm, you don't have a whole lot of larvae in there. I mean, there's some, because, if they're ready to swarm, they've been chasing her around, right? So I push all the brood down to the bottom box, and that leaves most of my top box. I'll bring brood from other boxes to that builder, right? And I'll do it of all ages, because I'm gonna make this thing last quite a while. So I want them hatching out of all ages, not just. And I'll leave the bees on the frames. My theory is like this: once them bees start making royal jelly, the nurse bees, they've got nothing else to do, because I'm supplying all the feed to them. The only thing they got to do in there is hatch out, eat, and backfill where they've hatched out, pretty much. And the older ones will still fly out and get nectar and pollen and whatnot. But once them young bees have started producing royal jelly and making queens, and you've added brood and brood is hatching out, I feel like the ones that have started making royal jelly will keep making royal jelly. Because if you'll notice, the longer you go with that box making queens, the better they get.
Right.
I think they've got one job, and they just keep doing that one job because they have nothing else to do. And the newer ones coming along are right behind them doing the same thing over and over and over. Because you drop grafts in, they're putting royal jelly in, and as soon as they're capped, you're dropping another graft in. They never stop. they just keep producing royal jelly over and over and over. They never stop. And the older that box gets, the better it gets. But now at the same time, every time I pull a graft out, I'm adding brood too. When I add a brood too, I'm pulling a frame out that has hatched out and they backfill that frame. I may pull 2 or 3 out where they backfill that frame because I'm pouring the feed to them, right? And they're filling up them frames where they have hatched out. So I'm pulling them out, dropping more brood in each week. Them frames that I'm pulling out that are full of nectar, they're going in to my nukes where my mating nukes have already graduated from 3 frames, right? They're going into 5 frames. So I take that nectar, it goes into that 5 frame box to feed that nuke. Now I no longer have to put quart jars on that nuke because I'm feeding with the nectar that's coming from my builder. You see what I mean?
Nice.
It's not having to feed as much. I can make up a 5-gallon bucket of feed, go out there and feed all of my builders at one time. I don't have to make up no more feed for my nukes or nothing else. Now I do put nectar, sugar water on my mating nukes, but when they graduate from there, they get the nectar coming from the builder.
Right.
And I'm constantly adding brood too each week.
Right.
Mark, can you start over? I missed everything. I'll watch the replay.
I'll be right
Maybe
back.
tomorrow.
I'll call you tomorrow.
I'm doing something similar, Mark. I use the 2 deeps, but
Right.
I pull the queen out and I'll put her in a nuke and just set her in a box up on top with a frame. Then once my cells have started to build out and I get ready to cap, I go back down through. I have to make sure there's no rogue cells, and I'll put that queen in. I make it queen right again. Then she'll go in the bottom with an excluder, and they're finishing up on top.
Right.
The other thing I do a little different, I graft into Nicot cups. So I'll put a cage on them once, they've been filled out for a few days, and I'll move them into a nuke and let the nuke feed them once they start to hatch.
Doug, how many rounds of queens do you get out of that setup?
I probably only get a couple because we get so busy, like with the flows on and we're starting to extract and stuff. So that takes over then.
Right. Okay.
I would think you could probably keep going, like putting the queen back down there. She's starting over, laying and producing more bees. So I would think you could probably keep doing it over and over.
What I do is like when I try to keep my new queens separated from my 2-year-old queens. So basically, I know the 2-year-olds they need to be broke down, right? I'm gonna make splits and builders out of them 2-year-olds. So the ones that hadn't got broken down and they look like they're going to swarm, that's the ones I'm pulling brood from constantly and putting into my builders every week. And I'm letting them keep building up. Each week I'll draw from them, right? And then as I get queens, I'll break them down into 3 ways and drop queen cells or virgins, either one, in them and just carry on that way. Trying to keep the 1-year-olds and the 2-year-olds separate. It helps me out alone. That way I know the 1-year-olds, unless they're really getting big and going strong, I don't really have to do anything much to them. They're going to be my production, right? So that's just how I keep it going. Yeah. But I've only got 60 colonies too, though, Doug. So
Yeah.
Is there an update on the Carney line yet?
No, nothing yet. It'll probably be late summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I had Mark Miller for a neighbor, I wouldn't bother raising my own queens.
That's another thing too, is sharing queens with your neighbors goes a long way.
It's neighborly.
Yeah.
I got no neighbors with bees. Closest one is 40, 45 miles away.
Holy cow.
Good grief.
That's a dang. 45 minutes to go drive to your neighbor's house. That's a long haul for a neighbor.
I bet it's quiet out there.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the part I would enjoy.
I would love it.
Yep.
My wheels are spinning all the time. I can't wait to get in nature and be quiet.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't need people.
Yeah. I understand.
I guess
I
I don't know if I could handle that or not.
I make the joke. I think I told you this, Mark. I make the joke about having Kaczynski syndrome minus the explosives. You know who Ted Kaczynski was, right?
I remember the name, but I don't remember what he done.
The Unabomber. The FBI
Okay,
found
yeah.
him in a shack in the middle of, I think it was Montana or Wyoming, out in the middle of the woods, in nowhere.
Right.
And I always make the joke to people like, hey, I've got Kaczynski syndrome. I want to move, up in the mountains, and everybody could leave me the hell alone. Of course, minus the explosives, right?
I used to say, Mark, that we live so far back in the bush, we have to come out to hunt.
Well, I don't know if you really call it hunting there, though. You're so far out there, it's just more or less just walk out in your yard, really.
We got all this snow the other night. Last night I had 2 deer on my deck.
Huh.
They're after
Got
the bird.
on your deck.
Yeah, they're after the bird feeder on the deck.
I get them up here in my yard in the garden all the time. There's one out there right now. I just shine the light on
In my yard every day.
it. Yeah.
In Missouri, I live right next door. Well, not next door, 10 feet from a deer highway. 3 o'clock in the morning, they'd be running through there.
There was a woman, it was up in Pennsylvania someplace. I'm sure Darren would know where it was at. But she had this little teeny dog. It was at night. And this bear was going to eat the darn dog. And I think there might have been a cubs around or something like that. But anyway, that bear came up and she was yelling at the bear, and it mauled her. A lot of facial, bites and skin, broken bones and stuff like that. And on one of her arms and all, they had her talking in the hospital bed. And I was like, man, I think the dog would have had to went, and I'd have went in the house. So, and that's a black bear. And usually, black bears don't, they're usually scary type. But I guess if it's a mother bear, she's real, protective.
I thought you were going to talk about that dog that invited a young deer in the house through the dog door.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Somehow that the deer followed the dog in through a dog door. He got in the house and started running around.
Ooh, that'll do some damage.
So did the deer become supper? Come on in.
Don't know.
Be like Goldilocks or whatever it was,
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I had a neighbor had a little weenie dog, and a bald eagle come down and got it and took it off.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's wild.
You know, the weirdest wildlife story for me was when I lived in Missouri. We had an ice storm one night, and I woke up the next morning. It had this big, huge oak tree out in the corner of our property, and I poured a cup of coffee, and I'm sitting there looking out the kitchen window, drinking my coffee, and I looked at that tree, and I thought, "What in the heck is at the bottom of that tree?" And I sat there for 10 minutes and I couldn't figure it out. So I got my boots on and I started walking out there. I got about 30 yards away from the tree and it was a turkey. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. He didn't move. And then I took a couple more steps and he kind of moved. He sat next to that tree during the ice storm and somehow glued himself to the tree. And when it finally warmed up enough, he finally, unstuck himself from the tree and took off. But I thought, well, if I walk any closer, he's going to start flapping his wings and break a wing or something. So I backed away. But yeah, that was hilarious. I mean, poor guy
he was ice up to the tree with ice.
Yeah, he was looking for cover under the tree, and somehow I guess he must have been warm enough to melt. I don't know if there was ice or whatever on the tree, but he was, leaning up against the tree when I saw him.
Mhm.
A couple hours later, he disappeared.
Yeah, Michael wants to know what's the humidity inside of a queen bee incubator. I don't know. I just put a Coke bottle worth of water in there and turn the fan on and keep it
Mine
cool.
usually runs 60 to 70%.
I
Yeah.
was going to say it's usually 60, 70 in there. When I first put it in, it might go up to 80, and then it dries out a little bit, goes down into the 60s. So I fill it
Yeah,
back, wetting it
I
back
think
up.
the main reason for that really is just to keep that shell soft where it ain't so
Yeah.
hard to hatch, right? Because if you let it dry out, then it'll get hard as a rock. It'd be hard to hatch out. So you can't be able to hatch out. Well, that's a lot of it, I'm sure.
I would think if it's 50% or higher, it'd be fine.
Yeah.
You run your temps in there like 93, 94?
Yeah.
I
Now,
think.
I usually
92,
92,
93.
93. I don't want it to get too hot in there because they hatch quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe 14, 15-day queens.
Yeah. Yeah.
James does anything 70% or more. And I run my incubator around 93 degrees.
Mhm.
And then as far as what incubator to recommend, I don't know. I made my homemade incubator out of a refrigerator up in the freezer box area.
Mine, I bought a Tractor Supply.
You got an regular egg incubator?
Yeah. It's got 2 windows on it,
fine.
and read out, and that's all I need.
So one
I'm
like
going to start. Go ahead.
oh, it's a
Yeah,
little
I'll run my
styrofoam box type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
on the next week. I'll look to see what the first week of April is supposed to be, and if it's going to be warm, I'll put it at 92 degrees. If it's going to still be a couple cool days in there, I might drop it down to 91 and a half. That'd be the coolest. 91.7, somewhere in there. Just to slow it down 1 day or 2 days, day and a half.
What do you use for a thermostat, Todd?
Just what's in that incubator. It has a little thing that a monitor or a device, or whatever you call it, that hangs down in there.
I have one of those we use for hatching chicken eggs, but I found I use a Ronco thermostat on it, so it's more accurate than the.
And it keeps it constant. And what I like about this one is it has a little grate on the bottom. It's all styrofoam, by the way.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, so it has the grates on the bottom. So if I put a sponge on there, or when I do, the water will go through, that grate, and I don't have to worry about the cells.
Doesn't have like little troughs in there where you?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
You're supposed to
yeah,
put
well,
in here, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basics. It's just a basic incubator. I can't remember how much I paid for it, but it works fine for me.
Did
Yeah.
you see where Robert wants some queens there, Mark?
I can't read the chat,
Man,
Charlie.
That's wrong.
Yeah, the one right above that, Charlie.
Yeah, that's the wrong one.
Well,
They
right,
jumped
there you
on me
go.
already.
the
Robert,
regulation on a temperature sensor is plus or minus 5 degrees. So
Yeah, it's
you any
Robert,
you can buy $100 one, you can buy a $10 one, and they're all going to be have the
It's
same
about the same.
air rate.
Robert, you just have to email me. I don't know if Charlie has my email or not. It's flashm.meal@yahoo.com. It's all lowercase letters.
I probably do, but say flash FLASH
M
dot M
dot M dot. It's flashm dot MILL.
dot
Yeah.
mil.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
what?
Yahoo.
yeah.
What you can do is take your temperature sensor and put it in ice water and see how close it is to 32.
I'm not. How do you spell?
If it's
What is
not,
it? Is it YA?
then you can
Or
figure out
yeah.
what the offset is.
YAHOO.com.
No, I got YAHOO.com. Let me put that in the thing. Is that correct?
Didn't come up.
flasham.mil@yahoo.com. That sounds correct to me.
All right. Here's what it looks like. Can you see it now?
Yeah, I see it there now.
All right, there you go, Robert. You can talk to Mark.
This year I'm gonna try to graduate from the roller cages and letting them hatch out on their own. I'm gonna start doing what Corey's doing and doing the C-section. Just about got my timing down right now, and I think I've got enough experience to do it that way. When I teach somebody, I teach them to hatch it out in the roller cages, right? But once you've got enough experience, I think you could do this and be pretty precise with it. Just break them open, but you got to have your timing right. I think it's less stressful on the queens, not
What
having
is
to
more
choose
is-
their way out.
You actually cut the end of the cell open so she can crawl out.
You just break it open, yeah, and then tear it down and get her out.
It separates
and-
from the cup, the edge of the,
Yeah.
the lip of the cup.
Instead of her eating out and coming out starving to death and all stressed out. It's kind of like a C-section baby. They're the calmest babies on the planet, you know. And one that went through the birth canals can be a little hellion sometimes. It's just a difference in them, right? So it's just less stress, I think, on the queens. And I'm gonna try to graduate from roller cages and go to that this year. We'll see how that goes first. I got to get some experience with it first.
Right. Here's what Tim and Hannah did. I think the heat's a little. I forget what it is. I talked to Hardman's down there, and they're talking about. I think it was humidity, and they said if you have a high humidity, the bees will hatch out faster. If you have a lower humidity, they take longer. And I think they were adjusting that for the amount of work they had to do, be able to get the cells
Yeah,
out.
that shell's harder, it takes longer, and then of course that stresses them out more.
Right. And then I guess it was it was a question I had. You have a queenless cell builder, and then you have a queen cell builder, queen right builder, where you do the double screen board and you flip it around and all that stuff. My question is hive that has the queen, when you take the queen away for so many days and then you put it back in place where you put a queen excluder on her instead of the double screen, is there a major factor there that hive gets stressed out because there isn't any queen?
Well,
I mean,
they can supersede her for sure. I've not ever had that happen. Of course, I don't do that very much. I've done it. Doug, have you ever had them supersede the queen after you did that?
No, I don't. Not that I remember anyway, Mark.
That's the method I use. I haven't had that problem.
Yeah.
well, I mean, the only one method I've done was a queenless cell builder completely, where I leave it in there to where I graft and I leave it in there for 6 days. They're capped, pull the graft out, put the cells in the incubator. And I used to incubate until about a day and a half before they were supposed to be coming out and put them in, put the cells in the mating boxes. But then last year, I got to thinking about it where if you leave them hatch out in the incubator into the cages, then you know you got a queen and all you got to do is walk her in and you don't have to worry about looking, you know, the curiosity doesn't come in. You know she's in there because you put her in there. So just come back in a couple weeks and then you should see eggs and larvae and all that stuff. That's kind of the way I did it. I've been doing it. But
That's what I do. I mark them then too. before I
Yeah,
walk
I like
in.
to get a good look at them, inspect them and carry on. At least I got a good look at her before she went in there, right? I know
well,
she got all
what
her
do you
legs.
do you see anything? I mean, what are you looking for as far as defects go?
Just anything that might be wrong. Legs, wings,
Antennae or whatever.
antennas, yeah. Any kind of deformity that could happen.
Right.
Because, I mean, you did graft that thing, right?
Yeah.
We're not perfect. Anything could happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's
All right,
true.
guys, I'm going to sign off. My cough's kind of coming back, talking too much.
All right. We'll catch you later.
All right,
you,
everybody have a
Bye,
good one.
Tom.
See you later.
See ya.
Yeah, that's true.
The worst part about the way I do it is going through those double deeps the first time to find that queen.
Right. That's the hardest part. But when I set one up, I don't have to fool with that no more other than checking for rogue sales, right?
Yeah.
And I about got all that squared away the day I got it set up. I can pretty much tell that, the brood that I put down on the bottom, there's no larvae there, or I wouldn't have put it down there, right? So I may go through it one more time, but that'll be it. And that cell builder is going to last me 5 weeks, maybe 6. I won't have to move a box. All I can do is add some brood.
Oh, that was a funny question. How do I get oxygen in your incubator refrigerator?
How do you get oxygen?
Well, the refrigerator, I use the top of a refrigerator, the
freezer.
freezer area. And if you look in the back there, there are slits in there where I also have the heat from the bottom of where my hot box is. And actually, I don't think that's a concern, to be quite honest with you. You're going to open that thing up, especially, I got it timed out. I know what days or day I think they should start queen rearing or, hatching out.
Right.
And usually I'll check them several times a day. And, and I'll find some in different, they're not all going to come out exactly on a certain time or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They'll hatch out over a period of time. And, but I've never had any problems with oxygen levels. I mean, that's about as, that's like some of the folks concerned about, like, and I know Brad's mentioned this, and where a hive outdoors, completely buried in snow. I had one lady on from Pennsylvania state, they're going to suffocate. I'm like, no, they're not. Snow is porous, number one, and number two, um, it's actually like an igloo. It helps them survive outside.
Insulate, yeah.
Snow
Insulate.
is snow is an incredible insulation. Yep.
Yep.
Right. And she was talking about suffocation, and I seen the one guy, Bill Hesbeck, who talked about the condensing hive. He has a photograph in there where he has two hives. All you see is the top of the cover, and the rest of the hive is completely buried in volcanic ash, and had been in there for I forget how many days, and they dug it out, well, I guess with a backhoe or whatever. And they open the lids up. Yeah, bees are just fine. No problem at all. So they can put up with a lot of stuff.
Two years ago, we had one row of hives under 8 feet of snow. And we dug down into them. We thought we were going to have to put feed on them before that snowbank disappeared. And when we got digging down in there, it was just like a cave around every one of them, eh? Like the heat from the hive melted it out, and they had a nice little chamber down in there.
So was it like about 3 or 4 inches around, that was melted away from the outside of the hive?
No, about 16 inches, 2 feet.
Oh,
Like it was
wow.
That much?
Yeah, I think it's in one of my early videos. You see it.
I was going to say, you have to remember those hives will produce anywhere between 12 and 18 watts of heat. So that's a lot of heat. And then you put it in that snowbank, which is going to insulate it. I mean, when I used to live up in the Northwest Territories, we'd go sledding, and that's what we would do. We would dig down into the snowbank. You'll roll out your sleeping bag, crawl into it, and you would sleep underneath the snowbank, and it was minus 40 degrees Celsius outside. So, and you were toasty cozy.
My son-in-law takes 3 kids for a night out every winter. They dig into a snowbank and have a little cave in there, and the kids sleep overnight in a snowbank.
And they're quite comfortable. Yep.
Yeah.
And there's no.
Yeah, I am just about back, Charlie. I've just turned. Go ahead.
He just cut out again.
What'd you do? Go over to Brad's house and drop off a few things and come back home?
He just cut out again.
No.
Oh, there he is.
No. Oh no. I just. My brand new truck. I didn't wear the seat out. So my driver's seat, the frame came apart. So I just ran out to Edmonton. So that's about a 4.5 hour drive, and they changed the seat out today. There was a couple other recalls that they took care of. Another service, and I'm back home here, ready to go. So we're going to blow some snow and plow out some apiaries tomorrow, because I suspect we'll be pulling bees out of the barn in probably a week to 2 weeks. So
it's time to start making splits here.
Yeah, we're 2 weeks out. Like, you got to remember too, we've got no snow. Doug and everybody down east there got a pile of snow. Our snow that we've got here in the last week, maybe, I mean, I can still see the stubble out in the fields here. So we got less than 4 inches of snow. I mean, it's we got nothing here. It's my biggest fear right now is all of our sugar and stuff doesn't arrive until next week. So and like I said, the fact that we're starting to see some stress, it's it's always a crap shoot when you're going to pull these things out. Like you're kind of damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So I'm not too concerned about the temperature in the building. I'm concerned about the stress that I'm starting to see on the bees.
Yeah.
I can control
stress causes all kind of issues.
Yeah, like I say, I can control the temperature of the building. I can't control the stress of the bees. So
right.
So what are they defecating on the front of the hives, James?
the ones down in the bottom are starting to come out, and yet you're starting to see some of that, on the front of the hives there. So they're, got to remember this. They've been in there for 5.5 months, almost 6 months, right?
Yeah, it's like the day we were. I seen this bee. It was from one of my hives. It was pretty warm today, and I seen this something hanging down behind him like a string. I'm like, what is that? And he landed on a log, which happened to have like a mushroom. It was sort of white looking, and here's this long string of poop, that, and like laid it there on the log and then flew off and everything. And I was like, all right, it just, I always find that quite amazing that, you don't think about insects going, defecating like that, it just, I don't know. It's just science, some things that you don't even think about and all. So
I walked out to my apiary this evening and out behind the house here, and the mosquitoes were so bad that you couldn't hardly walk without getting them in your eyes already.
Yeah,
And they're that big.
Those pot lickers.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can keep them, Mark.
I don't know where they come from, but they came here quick, and they're huge.
Aren't they? What kind of mosquitoes are there?
They almost look as big as a mayfly, but they're mosquitoes.
Wow. Mark, do you get Japanese beetles over there?
Yes.
Oh,
sure do.
When I was in Missouri, those things were merciless.
Yeah.
And they're dumb.
The worst thing here is the codlin moth. We can't grow no fruit here because of the codlin moth.
See, that's where up here we've got this great equalizer called winter, and it takes care of a lot of those in.
Yep. Well, I don't know. The mosquitoes live in the ice up there in Alaska. They still get them in the summer heavy.
We get mosquitoes. We get mosquitoes here, too. And we get the flies, we get the black flies, we get the horse flies.
But it does help. It helps with a lot of it. There's no doubt about that.
And we get wood ticks.
Now, what are you calling a wood tick, Doug? Is it like a dog tick?
We don't have a bunch of those up here, thank goodness.
Yeah, I guess they're actually.
When I was over visiting Brad, the ticks and stuff. That was.
We have seed ticks. They're little bitty, by the thousands.
Aren't those?
I killed a turkey one time, and I throwed it over my shoulder. And by the time I got back to the truck, my whole body was covered in seed ticks from that turkey.
Never heard of that. Or that ain't like a deer tick, is it? Right?
No, it's little bitty. It's like a baby tick.
But those are not called chiggers, though, right?
No, they're ticks. You'll have to dig them out of your skin. They bury in your skin just like they're ticks.
If you shoot a bear up here in the spring, Mark, it'll just keep moving. There's that many ticks on it.
Yep. That's the way these turkeys are here. Same thing.
Wow. That little town I lived in Missouri, you could tell what opening day turkey season was because all the boys at the high school parking lot, their trucks weren't in the parking lot. They were out hunting.
Yeah.
They'd skip school.
Yeah. Y'all was talking about the snow being an insulator when I was about, I don't know, 12, 13 years, I guess. I used to raise coon dogs. And I had a female out there that had puppies. And it came about a foot of snow. My dad told me, he said, go out there, take a shovel and just bury that doghouse. I'm like, no, I don't want to freeze her. He's like, no, it'll keep her warm. I did that, and puppies are fine. They live right there. That was my first experience with the snow being an insulator.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Charlie, you were talking about
Yeah, it's a good
bees
insulator and a good
trapping.
equalizer.
This winter, our yards, when it got warm, the bees started to fly, and that snow in the yards, it was just yellow from one end to the other.
Yeah, I never. One time here several years ago, it snowed, but it was only like just enough to cover the ground, maybe an inch. It would just make it so it was white, and then the sun come out, and in behind that barn where I got my nukes and stuff, it's sort of like a microclimate right there. I presume that the sun reflects off of that silver metal and kind of heats the air up in that little area. And like you say, there's all these little brown spots all over the darn snow and everything and everything. I'm like, look at that. You know, you don't realize all that kind of stuff and everything.
Guys, I'm gonna jump
Well, last
off
year.
here. Oh, go ahead, James.
Good night, Todd. I was just going to say, last year, this time of year, we were snow blowing, almost 3 feet of snow out of the apiaries trying to get things ready. This year, I could blow the snow probably with my lawnmower. So,
You'll be cutting grass before you know it, James.
Yeah.
well, actually, all of our fire bands are on, and the fire crews are already manned up here. So that's it's going to be a scary summer, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I'll
We're
see you
planting
guys.
potatoes here.
I'll see you guys later.
Good night,
I gotta
Todd.
eat some supper.
All right. Well,
Bye, Todd.
All right, take care.
let's see. Bruce Brown.
Well, I was blowing snow all afternoon, and tomorrow I'm going to go riding on it.
Yeah, I've seen that in your video. Is that your Arctic Cat?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go in and hop on that thing and get ground.
And tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
There's not enough snow here to even run one. I could drive everywhere out here with my quad.
My riding partner, he's 80 years old and he's raring to go.
Mm. So,
What are you riding in, Doug? Are you horse and buggy or four wheeler?
Now, an Arctic Cat
snow machine.
snowmobile.
Snowmobile. Yeah.
Yeah.
And all that. Well, guys, it's about 10 minutes 11 here, East Coast time. I'm going to go ahead and shut the chat down for tonight. We've been running almost 3 hours. So we'll see y'all next Friday, as far as I can tell. Thanks for coming in. See y'all later. And we'll